This conference will now be recorded.
There we are. Okay, good evening, everybody. This is the November 18th regular meeting of the Darien Parks and Recreation Commission, calling to order. We do have a quorum. And the first order of business is to approve two sets of minutes. Let's first do the October 21st, which is our first, our last regular meeting. Anybody have any corrections or for Jamie? No? Everybody's happy? I'm never happy. No, there's only a few things for Jamie. She's like, is this the night? Is this the night? Okay.
I got one, Lori.
Okay, go.
On page 5, the first line on page 5, I think it's supposed to be the freight's being, not begin.
Yes.
Oh. Other than that, perfect, Jamie.
Okay.
Thanks, Jim.
Yeah.
Okay. I also had a few things on page 5 in the chairman's report.
Maybe not.
I guess it's technically the second paragraph, so I could actually probably use a space. But it says, I also reviewed, it says the Sound Waters report. It was not Sound Waters, although I love them getting publicity since my husband is the board chair. But it was actually Save the Sound, which is a completely different organization with somewhat different missions, both fabulous missions, but they are different organizations.
Okay.
And then when it covers the meeting that Tiara and I had with the snack bar manager, it's actually, she's the operator. She's actually the owner of the business. It's not Norotan Bay, it was Norotan Yacht Club.
Okay.
Okay, and that's what I had.
Do you want me to call her the operator, the snack bar operator?
I think the operator, yeah, because she actually owns the business.
Okay. Got it.
Okay, cool. So with that, I will take a motion to accept the minutes as amended.
I'm sorry, I just had, sorry I was on mute. I just had one addition on the, under concessions. It says Uncle Deli owns the majority of the concession equipment in both our beach concession facilities. The owner of Uncle's Deli, Rob, and I think you should put Rob's last name in.
Okay.
Yep, it's a good.
I'll find it.
Okay. All right. So with those changes, if I can get a motion. Come on, somebody.
Sure.
So moved.
Thank you, Amy, and we'll take Mike as a second. Okay, and Jamie, if you could roll call, please.
Lori?
Yeah.
Susan?
Yes.
Kathy?
Yes.
Mary Louise?
Yes.
Tier? Sarah?
Can I vote if I wasn't there?
Yes, it is my understanding is under Robert's rules that you can vote.
Okay. I've forgotten. Thank you. Yes.
And Lucy?
Yes.
That's everyone.
Okay, thanks. Okay, next we have the minutes of the October 31st, which is the Parks Tour. Jamie, thank you again so much for doing the minutes. I was expecting to do them and run around with my little clipboard in my hand. So given how chilly it was that morning, I was happy to have my hands in my pockets and not doing this. So thank you very, very much. You did a very nice detailed job. Again, any changes to the minutes from our October 31st Parks Tour?
I had actually just two questions, actually.
Okay.
In the tour of Cherry Lawn, we talked about that partnering with the Master Gardeners or the Pollinator Pathway to have assistance with removal of certain invasive species. You should probably put in who's following up with that.
Who is following up with that?
I would love to volunteer for that.
That was Mary Louise. Sorry, I
Yes.
didn't, yes, okay. I recognized your voice. I didn't see the face moving. Thank you.
I just think that would be great if we could put that in there. And then in the tour of Diller Park, we said the neighbors' walls were encroaching the property now that the fence has on top of it. If we should consider what the town, if anything, is going to do about that, or if we're just going to leave it that way. But if you actually notice it and then don't do something, you actually lose certain legal rights.
That's true, but is that a minutes item or just an act, I mean, these are really minutes.
It's an item because this is the town noticing it. So the town is now on notice that this happened. So it starts ticking from them to do anything.
Okay.
So
Okay, so
I can follow up with planning and zoning on that.
yeah, it's just I just didn't want the town to lose a right that they might have.
So Jamie can add that I will follow up on that.
Okay. And then I
Susan.
think that was it.
Other proposed changes?
I just have one under the part about the Sullick's Woods. When you reference woods, I think it should be capitalized because it's called Sullick's Woods.
Okay. Oh, okay.
Any others?
Just, I think, Jamie, I think it would probably be good if you put in here that you were going to follow up with the Syrian Little League about donating the equipment at McGuan, right? We had talked about that. So if we could put that in there, that might be good because it is, you said you hoped, but you were also following up.
Okay.
Okay, Jamie, on the very last page, again, there's a reference to Norotan Bay, and that should also be, it should say Norotan Yacht Club members.
Okay.
Okay, any other changes?
I had a couple. Susan Daly, can you hear me?
Thanks, Susan. Yep.
On the second page, under the report for Sullick's and Dunlap's Woods, I was going to say instead of constant issue of dogs being walked off leash, I would say that it's like a continuing issue. Like it's been something ongoing. I would say more than constant. Like, I don't know. I just thought that was kind of awkward. The other thing under the tour of Cherry Lawn Park, we talked about that the fact that the water was going to be coming down from the garden, and we talked about drainage concerns, and I know that Pam addresses it later on in one of the director's reports, but it was noted there at that tour.
I said the commission discussed drainage concerns for the new court.
Okay. Oh, I did. Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. I don't have my glasses on. I'm sorry. Okay, that wasn't a good one. And then for the tour of Diller Park, I wanted to also acknowledge that the wooden pathway was improved because the previous pathway only had 2 pieces of really thin wood, and it actually was dramatically improved in the next iteration. And I wanted to acknowledge that for the foundation.
Okay.
And for McGuan Park, the tour there, I guess one of the issues was that it was not that it was hot, but also that the surface became uneven. And that's one of the issues that we're trying to address with any improvements. And I think those were my big ones. Thank you.
Okay, anybody else? Thank you for all these good comments. Everybody's set with those minutes? Okay, then we can take a motion to approve the minutes of our annual park tour on October 31st. Somebody?
Sure.
Sure. That was Amy, right?
Upstairs. Yep.
Okay, a second?
I'll second Susan.
Okay, thanks, Susan. Okay, Jamie?
All right, Lori,
Yeah.
Kathy,
Yes.
Mary Louise,
Yes.
Mike,
Yep.
Tier,
Yes.
Sarah,
Yes.
and Lucy.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, great. All right, we're done with the minutes. Okay, next we are going to public comment. We do have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 speakers who registered to speak tonight. So I will call on folks. First, we'll go with Patty Baumgartner.
Thank you, Lori. I appreciate it, and I'll speak quickly because I'm in the middle of a paddle match, so thank you for calling on me first. I would just like to say I'm Patty Baumgartner. I'm RTM District 1, and I'm on the Parks and Rec Committee and the Rules Committee. I'd like to formally say that I support the conversion of the Upper Cherry Lawn Court to a pickleball court. I started taking Parks and Rec lessons for pickleball last summer, actually at the encouragement of your Jamie Gore. And then I took it in the fall, and then I took it again this summer and in the fall, and I got hooked. It's a wonderful sport. I've been watching people of all ages play at Cherry Lawn, which is great. I used to think it was maybe for, some of the older folks, but I'm seeing people of all ages do it. And I will say it's easier on your bones. So that's a great thing. It's fun. And mainly also, I think it can be a great revenue source for us at Parks and Rec because there was such an increase in the number of people taking lessons. And so there's no other dedicated pickleball courts in town. Most of the towns around us have it. And I think this is a great opportunity for one of the fastest growing sports and also to bring in revenue for our town. So thank you for that. My second point was I just wanted to say I formally support the winter dog program at Weed Beach. I think it's great for the community. It is during a very cold time, Thanksgiving to March, so it's not like it's a ton of people there otherwise. On a few warm days, you'll see people down there with their kids, but normally it's dog people and their dogs because they have to get out there every day and walk. I think, as I said, I think it's great for the community. The one thing I would emphasize is that we do bigger signs, like the A-frame signs, I think you call them, Jamie, or the picnic signs. And then also put a sign near the playground, just reminding people no dogs over to this side, that it's all to the left. When I went there for the first time this winter, the print was so tiny on the front, I had to get out of the car and read it. So if we once we went to the bigger signs, I think it really helped to showcase to people where they need to go and what the rules are. So bigger signs and kind of telling what the hours are would be helpful. The last 2 points about that is, I don't know if you got a lot of letters or if there are a lot of people speaking, but we on the Parks and Rec Committee didn't get this agenda until like yesterday afternoonish. And I'd been looking for it. I knew pickleball was on it, but I didn't know the dogs at Weed Beach were going to be on it. So if we're not kind of getting the information till, just yesterday, I don't know how many in the public know about it, but hopefully people got the message out and y'all got some letters on that. The 2 last things were, I did go down to the police department and I checked with both animal control and the police, and they said there were no tickets written and there were no issues. The animal control officer did say he did have to tell 2 or 3 people, they were on the wrong side of the beach and they had to go to the other. But once he did that, then he said everything was fine. So I just thought it was important to kind of do the due diligence and check in with them on that as well. So my closing statement is, please continue to support the program. There's so many families that got pups during the pandemic, myself included. And I just think it's a really great activity to allow people outside, especially during the winter, during, this continued up this season going forward. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. I'm done.
Oh, I muted myself. Okay, thank you, Patty. Next up, we have Marissa Baker. Oh, I see her in there. There she
Hi there.
is.
Hi, everyone. My name is Marissa Baker. I live at 25 Hamilton Lane. Is that all I have to say for my beginning?
Yes.
Okay. So I hope everyone's been well in these tough times. I just wanted to take a moment to speak on implementing permanent public pickleball courts and how they'd be beneficial for our community. So I've lived my whole life in Darien. I went to the Middlesex Club as a kid and I attended Darien High School. I played on the varsity field hockey team there and varsity ice hockey team, and then I went to Middlebury College afterwards and also played field hockey there. So when a rare illness made my mother retire from the tennis courts, she took up walking to stay active. And if you met my mom, you would know that walking did not meet her competitive nature. When she found pickleball, I saw her find a new passion. In the past few years, I watched her love for pickleball grow from the sidelines, much the same way she had done for me for so many years. Something she had gone to once a week became 2, 3, or even 4. She made new friends and brought her old ones. Soon they had so many women and men, they needed more and more clinics. To be honest, the first time my mom asked me to play pickleball, I was very skeptical. I pictured seniors playing in Florida, and I thought it was played with a wiffle ball. It is. But she said it was the fastest growing sport in America, and they needed a 4th player. So I went. I was hooked, and I was humbled. I consistently get beat by Yolanda, a 75-year-old woman who I now consider a friend. My family soon joined, and we went to the courts every day after work. I started teaching my friends on Tuesday nights. My mom and me play against my best friend and her mom on Saturdays, and it's a ruthless game. That's the incredible thing about pickleball. It's not just a sport that can be played by any age. It's a sport where all ages can play together at the same time. For years, my mom and my dad watched me play sports from the sidelines, but now we can all play the sport together. They'll deny it, but my mom and me can beat my dad and my brother 4 games out of 5. It's one of those rare family activities where everyone can join and everyone has fun. The same spirit extends to games between me and my friends. Regardless of athletic ability or experience, we can all look forward to dedicating an hour on the pickleball court. Before I taught my friends how to play pickleball, we would play squash or tennis, but now it's always pickleball. They've moved on from borrowing my family rackets and got rackets their own. A lot of them even remembered the rules from high school gym class where we were taught it in the wintertime. There's no surprise that pickleball is the fastest growing sport in the United States, and it's a testament to the popularity of pickleball in town that's increasingly becoming more common not to be able to find an open court. Living so close to Cherry Lawn, I am now the designated open court checker, and the lines for the courts are getting longer. The installation of permanent pickleball courts would be a wonderful addition to our community, where the enjoyment of the game is already surpassing the limited capacity of courts. Pickleball is a unique activity that brings together family and friends, regardless of ability, such as in my mom's case, and regardless of athleticism, as I so humbly learned. The wonderful opportunity ahead of us to promote these causes, which I know Darien holds dear and near to its heart. That's all I have for you today, but thank you for listening.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Okay, that's great to hear. Thank you. Next on the list is Cheryl Russell.
There, I had to unmute myself. Good evening, everyone.
Hi, Cheryl.
I think you all received a copy of my speech, but I'm, excuse me, going to read it anyway. As a native of Darien, I have spent a great deal of time at both our beaches. I was there as a child, teenager, mother with 2 children, and now with my grandchildren. I am also a member of the Darien Boat Club and boater for a good 50 years. I'm extremely passionate about our beaches and our parks. They are a huge asset to this town. For this reason, I am here tonight to ask you to follow your rules and regulations regarding dogs on beaches. Over the years, people have come before this commission requesting dogs run free or on leash at most of our parks. The commission has been very generous in granting those requests. However, your rules state, quote, no dogs allowed on beaches. Our 2 beaches are the only places where people can sit and enjoy the views without dogs running all over. People enjoy our beaches all year long. This year in November, the weather was beautiful, which with 70-degree temperatures, Pear Tree Beach was packed on the weekends. During the summer, when the guard is at the entrance and the sign is on the guardhouse, most people abide by the dog rule. The guard reminds people that dogs are not allowed. After the guards leave in the fall and the guardhouse is removed, there is only one sign on the South Beach front beach by the flagpole that states no dogs allowed. One of the problems is that people think that sign only refers to the summer, and starting in September, dogs are allowed on the beach. People have been very nasty to me and others when we let them know there are no dogs allowed any time of the year, and we refer to the sign. They state the sign at the entrance has been removed, so they believe they can all come in. Another issue is there is no enforcement of the rule. The animal control officer doesn't come to the beaches in the summer because of the guards, and off-season rarely comes. Additionally, he doesn't work on weekends. The police are not going to come to the beach if there's a dog on the beach, nor should they. I'm asking you to please not allow dogs on our beaches any time of the year. Place signs at the entrance of Pear Tree, along with signs at Pear Tree's South and West Beach. Reed Beach only has a sign at the entrance, so that too needs more signs. These signs should say no dogs allowed at any time. I'd also like to add that I was there yesterday at Reed Beach, and there was a dog that was running all over the beach, and then he did his business and the people did not pick it up. They shoved sand over it. So this has been going on for quite a long time, and I really hope that you consider my request. I thank you, stay safe, and have a happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you, Cheryl. Okay, next on the list, we have Kelly Scallon, who I see is in there. Welcome, Kelly.
Hi, thank you. I'm here tonight because I wanted to thank you all for taking the lead in two things that I find important to our community. One is the dog issue, allowing us at Cherry Lawn and specifically at Weed Beach. Since you have done your pilot project for the past 2 years, it has been a great source of community building for so many people. I do respect Ms. Russell's statement about that some people are just not respectful, but overall I have found that most people are quite respectful and pick up after themselves. Unfortunately, yes, there's always that exception to the rule. The other thing I found is that a lot of people come from the Bay. So there may be something that you can do to alert those people that are coming from the Bay side maybe and not necessarily down the driveway, to alert them that, they're of the rules that they need to abide by. The other thing I wanted to say is since we're in this COVID environment, I find that having the ability to go outside in the winter with our dogs, our pets, make a huge difference. I think it makes a difference for all of us that are stuck in this situation. And it also is great for our mental health. I have to say, it's just nice to be outside. Finally, I want to say that in terms of real estate, it's a huge, huge bonus for our town to be able to say we allow dogs on the beach in the winter months. In fact, a SunTrust Bank study was done, which found that 33% of all 18 to 26-year-olds had that as among the top 3 reasons for moving to a town. That's been pretty consistent the past 3 years. As you all are aware, Greenwich, Scotts Point, Cove Island, Norwalk Pasture, Westport Compo, and Fairfield, Jennings, and Penfield beaches all allow dogs. We're the only one that does not. So I really appreciate the board trying to make it happen for Darien. And finally, I do support the pickleball also. I think it's great. We've had so much fun meeting new friends out there, and I hope you continue it. So thank you so much.
Okay, thank you, Kelly. Okay, and the last registered speaker we have for our public comment section tonight is Sean Shea, and I see him there as well.
Hi, thanks for letting me on this. First time I ever did a Zoom thing. I don't know if I should wear a mask or not, but
no masks required.
So
Should call you
First
Mr.
of all,
Pickleball, I think, but we'll just go with
I'm
Sean
on the
tonight.
pickleball. Pam's first day, I think I started pestering her about pickleball. How long has you been working here? 5, 6 years, Pam? In any event,
5 years.
5 years. So Pam was nice enough to help us get through this. We, they had the cherry lawn court. We painted the lines. We put one net from the town and one that I bought. And then you've seen how it's grown. It's unbelievably popular now. And now the town's even making money. So I understand, and correct me if I'm wrong, that you guys budgeted $165,000 for a new court. Does that mean that you guys are all on board for having that particular court become a permanent court?
No, we haven't voted on anything yet.
Oh, okay. Well, the people that I've been talking to, which is a lot, and I'm sure you've gotten a lot of positive feedback to this. What we'd like to do is, since it worked out so well to have that one court become a permanent court for the summer, why don't we make it permanent forever by having 4 pickleball courts on that one court? And I got some prices from 3 different professional people. The lowest one was $10,650. The other one was 5 Sports Tech, $15,400. Hindling was $28,000. What we propose is this: we will raise the money ourselves. The town won't have to put up a nickel. All you have to do is commit to that being a pickleball court, where we'll put 4 courts on. We'll use any of these 3 vendors. What we want to raise is just under $25,000, because even though the court to put 4 permanent pickleball nets and pickleball lines to make it exclusive for pickleball only, there's some steps on the west side of the property that were left over from a school or whatever it was, concrete steps. So we wanted to put some money into that to have the steps removed and have that west side, which is adjacent to the pickleball court, kind of slope back naturally, and put a couple benches. And look, the reason why we need 4 is this: Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays, the town has committed to lessons, if you will, where the town makes 20% of the profits. That's jumped from, I don't know, you have the numbers, 87% more people than last year or whatever it was. So if somebody like me, and our friends and everybody else who don't need any more lessons, want to come use the pickleball court, we can't, because the town has it occupied. So if there's 4 courts, the town can still make money on the 2, and the other 2 could be for people like me who just want to go and play and have fun. So my request for everybody, and I'm not a pickleball. I guess I am the pickleball spokesman, because I feel like I started this through Pam, and it's come a long way, and it's just catching on like crazy. So we'll take the 1 court, we'll make 4 pickleball courts out of it, which is doable. I've talked to all 3 of these people, and they said there's enough room. We'll raise the money ourselves, so we don't have to wait 2 years from now, because if you do budget the $165,000 or whatever it is, that's got to go through finance. Not even sure it'll get approved. I'm told that if we raise the money ourselves, which would be under $25,000 and maybe even $20,000, then we get it built faster. I want it done by next spring. I can't commit on. We've had a lot of people who said they would support it. They will give us money, but we can't raise the money until you find people say, yes, go out there, do your thing. We'll make it we'll make that just exclusive for pickleball courts. There'll still be 3 tennis courts down below and a bunch of others at Weed Beach. And then if you do get the $165,000 approved, you could use that money to build another court right next door because it's going to be that much more popular next year, or in another park. That's my spiel. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Okay, thank you very much, Sean. We are going to be discussing the court conversion later in the agenda. So if you want to hang on and listen, that will be a commission discussion, but we'll take the information you've provided to us now into account and then discuss some of the other numbers that Pam had in the budget. So
Gotcha.
thank you for presenting and doing some homework on this. We really, really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Anything you need.
Okay. All right. Next on the agenda is the discussion on we had tonight a vote on the field maintenance practices. We've had several presentations over the last few months on whether the town fields should be brought in concert with the regulations for how school properties are treated. And we've had various presentations. Wanted a chance for the commission to discuss it tonight, ask questions. Pam sent out some information on pricing and different options, which, those of us who aren't really scientific, I know I had questions on pesticide-free versus organic, et cetera. So I did want to have a chance for the commission to discuss it. And we did put a vote on this evening, although Pam, you mentioned that you were requesting that perhaps we don't vote on it this evening. We should have the commission agree to. So could you just touch on that why? But I still do want to have the conversation with the commission for a few minutes.
Sure. I had a conversation with Jim Flynn, who has been talking with Deepika and Juliet, and they feel that they want to come to a nice compromise about the maintenance practice, and they would like to propose back to the commission in December on this proposal. And, the only reason I think I was trying to put numbers together was because if we moved forth with a vote, say on pesticide free, there's a cost to that. So we wanted to be prepared to put something in the budget for it. And I don't believe that memo that I was putting up went to everybody, because at one point you wanted me to describe and try to describe the best between 100% organic and pesticide free, and we were kind of stuck there. So those preliminary numbers, I don't believe went to the whole commission.
Oh, I thought you had sent those out. Okay.
I don't believe so, but someone can correct me if I'm wrong.
No, I don't think we got it. So Pam, can you tell me what the compromise is going to be, or did you have an idea of where they're going? Maybe what direction they're going?
I do not. I think that I think that Julia and Deepika learned something from the last speaker about the quality program that Jim is putting out there on his minimal use of an annual spray. But I am not part of the conversation, nor have they met yet. But they just didn't feel there should be a rush to it right now, because they are communicating. They would like to come back to the commission with a proposal.
Okay, because I think we have time. I did not hear anything from them directly.
So did you get is that from Jim, or is that from the pollinators as well?
I heard that
Jim,
too. Amy, I spoke to Deepika and Juliet, and they did mention that was in the works with Jim.
Nice.
I talked to them 2 days ago. This was on another project we're working on, and they were pretty thrilled to be able to kind of work with him and collaborate a little more, and they seemed very happy with that idea. So I think, just given their experience with it and their knowledge, I'd like to see what they come up with. But I'm open to talking about more of it tonight, but I think that we should I'm not sure the vote should happen tonight either, if that's going on.
Yeah, I mean, I'm comfortable with however the commission wants to go. If there's sort of new late breaking news, I would want us to all be aware of it, but it's still a chance to kind of talk to reaction reactions about to the speaker. I mean, I found that the gentleman last month from UConn, I mean, he was very, informative, and I was impressed with the way that he kind of kicked off. And he said, well, you guys, I'm not the opposition here. I'm here to sort of present different pieces of information. I was taken by how highly technical it is. And in a lot of what he was talking about, you had to listen carefully and really understand and dig into. So, I think, many of us need it boiled down to, again, what the different choices are. And that's why, Pam, when you were sending information saying pesticide free versus organic, I think that's something we would all really need to understand what that means. But I'd like to get other people's question and feedback. And then I think what we could even do is, if we're not going to do an official vote, is maybe just get a sense of the meeting and how people are kind of thinking about this, or what information they would like. As Pam correctly points out, there are budgetary implications, and I don't know that that's something that this body does or does not need to take into consideration. However, in terms of us saying, what do we want to do, which is for the safety of our constituents and the safety of our environment, because all of that material that goes into the fields ultimately does end up in Long Island Sound. So, those are the things that I primarily think about. But as you all know, we are not complete masters of our own budget. We propose a budget through Pam and her department, but we do not have the power of that pen. So we could draw a stake in the ground and say, we want to be 100% organic. The cost is 5 times as much, and it could get slashed out. So I do think we have to recognize that any recommendation that we ultimately vote on has to be that, this is the commission's desire. But ultimately, it is possible that we would not get funded for it. So I wanted to clarify that, because that's what makes it a little bit challenging, for us, the way our commission works, in terms of us not having ultimate control over our own budget. So I did want to remind people of that. So I think it's important that I'd love to get a sense of the meeting tonight and how people are thinking about this issue as we've had different presentations. And how, if people are like, yes, that it's their inclination to try to be free of pesticides, versus people feeling, no, it's such a minimal amount that they're fine with it. So maybe we can just kind of talk it out for a few minutes. So I'll really open it up to the floor if somebody wants to kick it off.
So Lori, maybe if I can try to just share some thoughts. So
yeah, please.
And maybe I'll come at it from a little bit of a different perspective.
Which is great.
I'm generally, let me just see if I can just collect my thoughts and try to kind of be clear in what I'm trying to say here. First off, we're a commission, and we're overseeing the activities, I guess is the best way to say it, the activities of paid staff in the town, with the responsibility to maintain our parks to a certain level of standard. Now, maybe at some point along the way, and I know early on when we first got together with one another on the commission, or when I first joined, I think we even touched on the idea of maybe even defining some standards of care, so that theoretically we can kind of do a little bit, some type of a report card, and not so much to hold Pam's team accountable, but at least so that we can understand directionally, like, are things looking good, or could things be improved upon? So here we have a scenario where we have Jim Flynn. I think by my recollection, every speaker who's met with us, and let's say on both sides, although I'm not suggesting their sides here, but let's say across the spectrum of the various speakers that that met with us, I think all in the course of their kind of observations, I think my recollection is they all indicated that they felt comfortable. And I'm using my words, I'm paraphrasing, but I think they felt comfortable and kind of recognizing that Jim has done, a very good job of kind of managing in his role with kind of a very light touch and minimal level of use in terms of pesticides and herbicides, as we're talking about. So I guess with that as the backdrop, my inclination is, we've got paid staff. We look to them to be the experts of what we've asked them to do. And I'm more inclined to just basically say, I prefer to trust our staff We can hold them accountable. We can give them kind of our sense that we'd like to have a kind of a light touch or, kind of a minimal use of herbicides and pesticides, and then leave it to them. And we could monitor that on a regular basis, because aside from the budget, what I'm concerned about is that once we tie our staff's hands by making a ruling in this regard and saying no herbicides, no pesticides, I don't know what we do or what the future commissions do when there may be different staff other than Jim or Pam, and we start to find that there's a deterioration in kind of the quality of the maintenance. And the answer that comes back to the commission and the town is, well, you guys told us we can't use this, we can't use that. So, I mean, it's that simple. Now, I'll just simply go on record. I think for those who know me, you guys know I'm a gardener. I probably, since I've been here, I probably put over 2,000 plants in the ground in Darien, all perennials, and so I'm certainly sensitive to the idea of the impact on the environment and pollinators. But like I said, I'm coming at it from a little bit of a different perspective, and that perspective is kind of our role in kind of taking action that in turn over time might adversely tie the hands of the people we're asking to do the best possible job they can do for us. And once again, I think at least in the case of Jim, my sense, and I went on record and I was going to suggest that I made the comment in our last meeting, I was going to suggest we put it back in the minutes, but that's okay. I think everybody's heard me. I think once again, Jim deserves a lot of credit because I think he's been very, very thoughtful about how he's approached this. Now, it's not to suggest that a successor to Jim might take the same approach, but I think that's where the commission comes in, and I think that's where the executive director comes in. So I'm just a little reluctant to kind of put the commission in a role of essentially kind of a day-to-day management responsibility here, at least from my perspective. And as much as I'm not in favor of kind of extreme use of these things, and I prefer to see less rather than more. I think that's kind of the angle that I'm coming at it. So I would kind of suggest monitor, oversight, but not necessarily look to tie the hands of the staff. Not so much because I'm concerned about now, but I'm concerned about potentially impact going forward. And we've got a lot of lawns. We've got a lot of I think aesthetics are important to this community. Safety is important to the community, and I think our role is to continue to reinforce that idea, and once again kind of balance that with the trust that we have in the staff that we have in town. So that's my view.
Okay, thanks, Mike. Others? Amy, I know you've been very interested in this topic.
So I am sort of thinking that Susan, thank you, Mike, for your comments. I listened carefully, and to everybody else who's speaking as well. But I think I would like to just wait to hear what the pollinators and Jim have to say after they meet.
Okay.
Lori?
Yes, Mary Louise.
As a gardener, I obviously would prefer to be on the more organic side and the non-pesticide piece. However, I agree with Mike, a lot of the things he said about Jim Flynn's presentation. And one of the things that struck me, which I must say I hadn't thought about, was you're talking about playing fields and you want flat surfaces without divots and things like that. And I guess I would like more information on if you were to switch over to a non-pesticide treatment and so on, could you assure that you would get the flat surfaces that you get currently? Because you don't want to endanger any of our athletes when they're out there.
Okay. Susan, I know you were going to see if you could make phone calls. I know there wasn't a lot of time. Were you able to do that, or do you need more time to do that?
Oh, I did. I actually
like, I think you guys brought up a good point about who's using these fields in the end. And I reached out to the president of Darien Baseball and Softball Association and also the president of the Darien Soccer Association, since they're the kind of the biggest users of the fields, to kind of get their opinion. And even though my kids, spent a lot of their time when they were younger on these fields, it was just nice to kind of get more of a broad, holistic view from both of these presidents of these sports groups. And I have to tell you guys that, again, same thing, they love the Darien Parks and Rec fields. They raved about them, in fact. And they actually, I think, Mike Moore says they wish they had more space from us. So I think, that's all kudos to Jim and what a great job Jim's done. And as you know, I've been on the commission for 13 years and I've always heard glowing feedback from him. So I thought having that perspective was really important. They both said that what's important for them is that the playability of the field. And I think, especially with baseball, the sense I got was that it is a tricky, the way the ball falls, the move. So that was interesting to get that perspective. They said that, they count on the fields looking a certain way and how Jim is able to care for them in that way. And, I thought that was something I hadn't, I mean, I walk on them, they look nice, but I didn't realize, how their programs are based on having good facilities and their athletes need that to become better at their game. So that was really good. I didn't get a chance to speak to any other towns because I didn't get the names of, if that's what you were asking, Lori.
Yeah.
I did get Pam's reports. It sounded like a lot of the towns are doing tests, the ones that she reached out to. I think it was Stanford and Guilford. They're doing test programs there, right? And, I saw the pictures and, in the test field, there are some, it's not 100%. I mean, there are some weeds in there. It's, from what I hear from other people, it's a multi-year project. So would we be able to maintain them at the level that, they currently are with organic straight off the bat? I'm not sure. I'm not an expert, but it seems like from their example I think, was it the first year, Pam, that they started? I can't remember.
Yes. There's no towns. Greenwich is the longest program, but Jim seems to think that even Greenwich still certain fields are using an annual spray, but I don't know that for a fact. But Greenwich is the longest program, and they've been at it a long time. They attest that it's a lot of work. It's very expensive, and now Stanford is just doing a pilot test program with one field, and Guilford's doing one field too. But where they can have pesticides, they do use them, but they try to use them minimally.
Yeah, so that's why when I think, finding if there's a kind of a middle ground with Jim and the pollinator pathway group would be a great option to kind of explore first. I think that if we were to go to something that was like a hybrid, oh God, I hate that word, especially with remote learning. If we could go, maybe try, a test or something like we've done or a pilot of some sort, I think I would be open to something like that to see, how we can go forward. But I just think that the level of service, I guess, we are currently providing with Jim at the helm, hopefully using light pesticides is something that we have to maintain, especially with some of these groups. Go ahead, Pam. I'm sorry.
Yeah, if I could add, when you said, a pilot program, Jamie Stevenson has publicly stated that she wants Highland to be that pilot program. So although we don't have a dedicated athletic field, we do plan on using what was once that horse ring as an area where little soccer feet can play. So Jim is looking to create that as a pesticide-free town property.
Yeah,
And
so
that wouldn't be
Jamie,
on our budget.
Yeah, sorry.
Well, the other thing was that actually I'm sorry, just to correct myself, Kathy. Recently, I did hear from Jamie that the Board of Selectmen were still thinking about it. It hasn't been confirmed. I do have to add that.
Yeah, I remember that the neighbors didn't necessarily want a soccer field there. So quite adamantly. I think Jim has done a good job. My son plays a lot of sports in the Darien fields and we have really nice fields compared to the place he travels to. And you've done a great job. I think we do need to respond to the parents who are concerned about the pesticides when their kids are playing there, especially the little ones. As they get older, they're less likely to eat the grass, but the little ones are 2 and 3. So I think we have to respond to that and explain to them maybe the science behind some of it. But I do think that needs to be part of our decision because they do raise some great questions about what about the health of our children. And I think we need to think through those issues and have a response back to them. I like the pilot idea and I like the compromise idea where maybe we gradually get to the programs and hopefully as you go forward, the products, so the organic products will get better for everybody. But I do understand they may not be the best to date.
Yeah, Pam, is it correct, however, that the fields at all of the schools are pesticide free?
Yes,
And
they all have to be.
And how are the quality of those fields comparably?
Well, as Susan said, she had discussions with the sports organizations and they are not happy with the school fields. They love park and rec fields, but the quality of the fields between the two, park and rec are in much better shape.
Okay, but Susan, in their conversations, they acknowledge that's because we're using chemicals that are banned and that it was done for health reasons.
No, I think sometimes they just even said they didn't, well, they have a field use fee for, from the Board of Ed too and they're just not, certain things have to be done. They don't fill in the field. It's not just about using chemicals. It's about, there's stuff that I guess Jim and his staff are doing at McGuan and the way they dress the field. I'm sorry if I'm not saying this right because I'm not a baseball person, but he does a lot of prep that that makes it a very good surface that Board of Ed, even if you take away the pesticide use, they don't do that. And so I guess, especially Little League was like, we count on that. We need that. And, it's just important for how they play. Otherwise, some of these places, they have to kind of scramble and fill in things and make things work, and it's just not a good situation, for them to present the field in that condition. Like for instance, my kids went to Tokenique and it just didn't play well. It didn't look good. There was a lot of issues. It just looked like there wasn't being much attention paid on it versus that they were not putting chemicals on it.
Okay, but we might not be able to separate that out from just Jim's really good at maintaining fields versus whoever does it for the schools versus what applications are being used. We guess probably need to understand the separation, which is which issue. Tiara, were you going to say something?
Oh, I just had a question. I was wondering about if we have any information on the numbers of injuries on fields with no pesticides versus ones even organic or pesticides. Is there anything like that?
I actually asked them about that, because I said that's part of the reason we're trying to make a good decision on safety, because we wouldn't want to have, people twist their ankles on weeds or whatever it might be or slip. And they said that wasn't really an issue on any of the fields, that, it just, it was more playability, injuries for them. They were very conscious too with grass. You have to not overuse it. And that's something that found that, both, especially Parks and Rec and was very good about saying, we got to, not overuse fields. So that was a good, they're conscious of that, but they never said, oh, if we don't use pesticides, we'll get, kids. They never cited that as an issue at all.
Okay. It's good to
Hey,
know.
Lori,
Yeah.
can I just I'm sorry, Tia,
Oh,
I'm sorry.
I was just going to say that I'm in favor of moving towards not using pesticides, and I think it would be beneficial to try a pilot and to see if we can realistically upkeep these fields properly. See how much work goes into that, and if we can do that. Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, I was just going to say, maybe just to add, I guess, to just as I'm sitting here thinking, maybe just to add to what I said earlier, and that is, look, I don't want to presuppose how the commission will vote, whether we'll mandate no use or I'm not sure. And I think, Amy, to your point and everyone's point, it's great that we've got this discussion going on between Deepika and Juliet and Jim. I think maybe just to be clear here, I mean, if we choose not to kind of mandate, preventing the use of this stuff, I am in favor of strongly encouraging Pam and her team to move as aggressively as possible to kind of, organic products. So, and away from these other types of chemicals. So, I think the state of the industry is changing every year. I think these products are improving. I mean, like we probably have all tried quote unquote organic stuff years back, and you basically spray it on the lawn and the lawn just kind of laughs back at you, so, and you spend a lot of money on it. So, and that's definitely different. I live in a community here where we're using a product called Scythe, like as the sickle scythe kind of thing for weed removal, and we've seen very, very good results with that. So, at any rate, just to be clear, I think from all of the conversation, I think Pam, the one message you should take away from this is, we're strongly encouraging. Moving as aggressively. And, none of us, I don't remember a discussion, where we had to weigh in on what chemicals Jim is using nowadays. I mean, you guys have made those choices. Jim's done his own research. He's decided what chemicals he uses. So, clearly, there's a very thoughtful process that's going on. And I think, at the very least, I think I want to weigh in and just say, move as aggressively as possible. Within what you think we're asking of you, what the community is asking of you in terms of kind of the state of the state of these properties, but it's definitely well worth kind of moving away from these products as soon as we possibly can.
Thanks, Mike. I think we've heard for everybody except for Lucy. Anything you'd like to add? As soon as you unmute yourself.
Very sorry. No, I mean, I appreciate, everything that everybody was saying about protecting and whatnot. I mean, my kids were always big users, and it is correct about the facilities in town are better maintained than than other facilities. But to Mike's point, I mean, sort of trying to mandate what sort of chemicals are used and stuff seems ridiculous. I mean, it just sort of seems it'd be really hard out of our scope. But I agreed with most of the conversation going on.
Okay, thank you. All right, so it was a great conversation, everybody. Am I hearing that we would like to hear back the sort of late breaking news and discussions between our colleagues at the Pollinator Pathway and what discussions they are having with Mike, and get some more feedback on that, and then continue to discuss this and not take a vote this evening?
Yes.
Do we need to take a vote, not to take a vote?
I don't think so.
I move not to take a vote.
Okay, we'll vote not to take a vote, just to be sure. Second?
Second.
Okay, Jamie has to roll call. Jamie Gore?
Sorry about that.
Oh.
Lori?
Yes, that's fine.
Susan?
Yes.
Mary Louise?
I seconded.
I was afraid of that. Kathy?
I moved, so it's yes.
Sorry, I missed you guys raising your hands. I apologize. I was trying to listen. Amy?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Tier?
Yes.
Sarah?
Yes.
Lucy?
Yep.
That's everyone.
Okay, thanks. And Pam, are you confident that whatever conversations are going to happen will be soon so that we can follow up on this in December?
Yeah, it has to be next month because if any changes are made, we'll have to budget for it.
Budget, right, okay. Okay. All right, so let's
We'll
make
put
sure
it on
that
the agenda.
Okay, thank you. Okay, next on the agenda is the discussion and vote on the winter dog program at Weed Beach. And, you know, we did have some public comment on it. We had a handful of letters came in today. So I will open that up for discussion. As you recall, for the last 2 years, we have approved individuals to bring their dogs into Weed Beach and allow them to run off leash in the designated area, which is over on the short lane, what we still refer to as the short lane part of the property, which we did go over and walk, those of you who were on the parks tour on October 31st. The hours, I believe, were from 9 until 2 p.m. The idea there being that we wanted off-leash dogs off of the property once school was over, because even in the winter months, families very much do go down and use the playground, which, as you know, is not enclosed. So that was the program that we have had in the past. We began at Thanksgiving, which is why we have it on for a vote this evening, because people seem to be keen on doing that, being able to do that for Thanksgiving. And I believe we ran until March 1st. So,
Program was from 9 to 1.
9 to 1, thank you. 9 to 1, okay. And the playgrounds are quite, I mean, even in the winter, the playground is quite active. It's still a hot spot in town. So I will throw it open to conversation, discussion.
Hi, Lori, this is Sarah.
Hi, Sarah.
I just want to say, you know, I've been a big proponent of this pilot program for the last couple of years. I unfortunately wasn't able to go on the tour, so I missed the conversation that you guys had then. What I would like to point out this time, for this year, which I do think is different, is the fact that there are going to be a lot more people around. And that means, and a lot of people have, you know, gotten dogs in the last, you know, few months. So if the weather is decent, I'm expecting that there's going to be a lot more volume of people walking dogs down at the beach this winter, and people, especially given the fact that we're in hybrid and potentially remote learning, people who are going to have kids down at the playground. And I think that's a different set of facts than we've had the last couple of years. So I just kind of wanted to throw that out there. I'm not sure that it changes my opinion necessarily on it, but it does concern me somewhat. And people, you know, from what I've seen with their behavior, and it's not everyone, and I hate to say this, is people don't obey the rules. So, you know, if we have dogs off leash in one part of Weed, they're going to let them run over to the other part, especially if we have a lot of dogs. So I do have some concerns about this. Again, I'm not necessarily voting against it, but you know, I would like to hear how if anybody else has similar thoughts.
Okay, thank you, Sarah. Who would like to speak next?
One thing I've heard from a lot of neighbors around is that they were asking that people wear masks because there might be more people down there. So, you know, that could be a thing that we add into it or on a sign. Just an idea. Okay.
Yeah, I'm inclined to increase the signage just because I think people with COVID and hybrid learning need to get out. And we'll probably see more usage of our parks in this next year. So maybe we could continue it for one more. It sounds like the signage isn't great. I don't know what you've done in the past for enforcement and how that works. But I think it would be helpful if maybe if someone goes down, the dog warden goes down and does talk to people. And I know that can be difficult and people may not be responsive, but if you do get a ticket or something, then I think people are going to stop not obeying the rules if they see that there's concerns about it. But I'm inclined to increase the signage and continue it for another year. I agree, a lot of people have gotten dogs in this past year in town. everyone I talk to has a new puppy or a rescue or something. So I think it'd be helpful to give them another space for the dogs to run. I personally don't use Weed Beach for my dog because my dog needs a larger space, a larger area, but I think other people in town really do use it a lot.
Pam?
Yeah, I wanted to add that I know this commission, set the times for when dog owners could have their dogs on leash and off leash throughout the town, in town parks. And in this particular case, we set the hours at 9 to 1. But during that time when we were trying to decide on this, many of the dog owners really wanted to see early morning hours. And I know at one point, Laura, you were saying because of the buses, but I know that this commission also made the decision from dawn to 8:30 because less kids would be at the park at that hour. So I just thought maybe if you were considering to keep it on for another year, that we would extend the hours to earlier.
What do you say? When did we say dawn to 8:30? What are you talking about?
That the dogs could be off leash at certain times during the year, from dawn to 8:30.
Not at Weed.
No, not at Weed. No, I'm talking about the other parks that you have mentioned. And then dawn to 10:30 were the other hours when the kids were were in school, would be dawn to 10:30. When they're out of school, it was dawn to 8:30.
Okay, well, the concern of the earlier hours, Pam, was increasing the traffic on Nearwater Lane, which is very heavily trafficked in the early mornings. I'm personally observing that right now, and maybe as people don't want their kids on the buses, a lot more people are walking their children to school. I see Tiara walking her children to school. There's a lot more walkers on Nearwater Lane. These sidewalks are very narrow. At the moment, they're blocked by trees, but that should be resolved. It's one way in and one way out for all the people who, are trying to get to work. Now, you might argue that that's a little less right now. There's a high level of work trucks or whatever, but it is a very, very pedestrian street, especially early in the morning. So my concern was adding more volume of traffic during those early hours, especially when people are going to and from Henley School.
How much traffic do you think it really is? Like, what do we think the volume is? Like, how many cars?
It's constant. It's just constant. It's a very busy. Hundreds. We have hundreds of cars go up and down. Right, Tiara?
I do have to say that people on Nearwater, a lot of people, go onto the street and give each other space. And I've seen a lot of people also, if they have masks on, if they're getting near someone, to put on a mask. So I think if we have signage saying that if you're going to bring your dog down, bring a mask, just in case it's crowded, that people will just have their mask on them if they're walking. That might just help the traffic control. I really want to encourage people to use our parks and to get out and walk. And it's just so important for mental health. And even if that means people have to veer onto Nearwater Lane, cars, some of them speed, but most people are really giving pedestrians a lot of space right now. So I'm totally all for dawn hours. I think it's just so fantastic to have people being able to walk, with their kids early morning or go on a run with their dog. And I would even be open to pushing it a little bit later till April 1st. It's still very cold in March, and it's a nice, or even just a little later. So.
Other comments?
Yeah, so I'm in favor of continuing the program. I don't think we've learned much to suggest that, the original premise and kind of assumptions we made about the program have changed. I think we've monitored it pretty closely, and I know Pam and others have kind of checked in with Darien PD to understand how, if there have been instances of issues. So I think for the reason we originally kind of voted on it and approved it as being a good idea and a good program for a large population of folks who are dog lovers, who like the idea of getting out and, kind of using that particular park in the off season for this is a great, I think it remains a good idea. Having said that, and Lori, if you'd like, I'm going to bring up something, and if you want me to just kind of push it to maybe new business, I don't see new business on the agenda, but I'm happy to either push it to the end or push it to another meeting. But I do think we have a very serious enforcement issue for dogs in our parks, and the park in particular that I'm really concerned about is Woodland. And my issue is maybe a simple one. I think we as a commission and as a town, if we have rules, we should make sure that they're enforced, and we should make sure people are paying serious attention to them, whether it's down at Weed, around, like the area that dogs would be allowed to run in, or any of our parks. And if we're not going to enforce them, then I think we should basically, eliminate the rule. I think it's a very, very bad situation to have a rule and have people not take it seriously. And I spoke about this kind of earlier in the year at Woodland, and I have photographs of folks walking, not one dog, but multiple dogs off leash at Woodland. And I have, firsthand accounts of people saying, hey, by the way, aren't you aware there's a leash, rule here? And people saying, oh, we don't pay attention to that. It's never really enforced. Or other responses like, oh, when we know the enforcement guy's coming, we'll put our dogs on the leash, and as soon as he's gone, we'll take the dogs off leash. Lots of firsthand accounts of, large, very loving, playful, golden retrievers bounding up to, young families, with the best of intentions. I think it's all, I think it's an abuse. I think, we've spent a lot of time, and I haven't been on this commission for all that long, but for the last couple of years, we spent a lot of time talking about this, dogs, and I think we've all agreed it's a privilege in this community. And I spoke to a buddy who lives over in Westchester earlier today, and he lives in a town where they don't allow dogs at all in the parks. So I think it's a privilege. I think it's a privilege we all value. And I think it's an issue when people are abusing that privilege. And, we're a commission. We're here to kind of set some rules and enforce the rules. I think it's an issue.
Do we know how other towns enforce it? Because I've noticed the same thing, but I guess I'm saying to myself, well, how do I personally enforce it versus?
Well, here's what maybe I'll just add one other thing, Lucy, and, to your point, I think if we're serious about it and we're going to keep the rule, I think there's a cost of enforcement. And I think, we have enforcement through DPD. I think, it's limited. And I think we have to ante up now and put some money on the table, and that may be coming from something else that we value. And in the way that we brought additional security in for, our beaches this summer, I think we got to pay for some additional security, to be in these parks on a more regular basis, maybe in the troubled parks on a full-time basis, and just kind of do what we say we're supposed to be doing here.
Yeah, I would agree with Mike. And I would, just say thank you, Mike, because I'm going to tell you all, guys, I'm going to vote against this. I realize I probably will be outvoted, but that is because I am completely and utterly frustrated with the lack of respect for the rules that we have set. There were signs in Weed Beach last year. There were plenty of signs. I'm also very concerned about sign clutter. I don't want to go to the parks and be bombarded with do this, don't do that, whatever. Our parks are supposed to be naturally beautiful. And now we're going sign crazy to tell people all the things they're not supposed to do. I'm down at Weed Beach every weekend. I watch people walk right by the signs with big letters. They were past the hours. I saw people in all the wrong sections with their dogs running loose. They were all over the back section. I saw a woman sitting with her huge dog in the playground. Weekend after weekend after weekend, people were violating the rules that were posted. And if I take my time, which honestly, I don't really want to do because I work 10, 12 hours a day. And if I go down to the parks, I'm going to enjoy them. But if I say, okay, I'll do it this time, and I go up to remind somebody that they're not allowed, generally you take verbal abuse, and people are very mean and rude. So it's getting old. Same thing. I was at Woodland a few weekends ago with my husband, dogs off leash all over the place. So, I just feel you give an inch, you take a mile. And I feel like I would love to see the dog community come together and self-enforce. Let the people who are behaving with their dogs get out there and remind the others that the privilege will be lost. But I do agree with Mike. The monitor program was excellent this summer. He was all over the parks. We did see a reduction in incidents. And I think when we get to talking about the budget, I think it's time we really increase our revenues, which one way to do that is really increase the beach fees to pay for these monitors possibly 12 months a year and get the enforcement that we need, because we are not getting it out of the single animal control officer. And as Pam points out, he doesn't work on weekends. So you're right, we have these rules, people ignore them, they get nasty about it. And you know, here we are, and yet, so I'm very, very frustrated by it, and I'm tired of the verbal abuse. And you know, as one hand, I'm the chair of the commission. I feel when I see a violation, I should be calling it out to people, but it's gotten really, really old. I got to tell you, it's gotten really old. Pam?
I just want to add to Kathy's question. Chip, the animal warden, he had a big presence at Weed Beach in the wintertime. And he spoke to many people. He didn't hand out any tickets because he said if it was a first time offense, he just explained where they were supposed to be. But he was there quite often. I saw him there. I would go, you know, multiple times during the week, and we would chat because he'd be parked there. You know, I don't know how often he got out of his van and walked Woodland Park, but certainly Weed Beach, I can attest that he spent some time there.
Well, what is going to cause him to ticket people? Then Mike's right. We have no enforcement. I don't care if the first time offenders.
Yeah. How much are the tickets, first of all? Are they enough that someone would be deterred?
I don't know that.
Yeah, that's something to look into. And two is how often they given out. So at Woodland, since I live right here, I've never seen him in all the years I've walked my dog, which is 7 years.
Mm-hmm.
That's, you know. I walk my dog 5 times or more.
Is that the weekends, Kathy?
I don't go usually on the weekends because it's more crowded. But I do go a lot of the back pathways with my dog, and I've never seen anyone really enforcing anything. The 5 dogs is a dog walker. She has her dogs run crazy. I don't like.
No, Kathy. I'm sorry to cut you off. It was actually an owner. It was with 5 dachshunds. Yeah, 5 dachshunds. And so that person probably knows who it is now, but it was 5 dachshunds. Very happy to have her photograph taken, by the way, with only 1 on leash and the other 4, you know, off leash. Not trying to hide it at all, but definitely not a dog walker. And by the way, she also indicated she's been doing that for a very, very long time as well.
Yeah, I think hours for, you know, we can talk about Woodland Park another time, but I think hours when the dogs could be off leash should probably be a better way than say no dogs off leash, because you're not going to be able to enforce it. So you have to be somewhat have a reality sort of check about what people will do there, because it is a really sort of, no one ever puts them on leash except maybe me and a couple other people. But at Weed Beach, you know, if they give tickets out after the first offense and it's a deterrent, I think it may go away. You know, I hear a lot of people enjoy it, and I would say the same thing at Woodland Park. If it's a deterrent, if it's a high enough ticket price, people don't want to pay $50 to $100 because their dog is off leash.
I agree.
I'm going to jump in here for a second. As I recall, I mean, this is a hugely frustrating issue, and I think that Mike is right in pointing out that it's an enforcement issue. As I recall, several years ago when I think we attempted to have the dog, I don't know his title, but we attempted to have him come in and speak with us. And it was revealed at that point that no tickets had been given out ever. And what, excuse me, Lori?
Like ever.
Ever. So there is no enforcement. We can feel, I mean, there was at that point. I don't know if anything's happened, you know, recently, but that was not that long ago. So Mike is right in identifying that this is an enforcement issue. And I think if we do start to give tickets, maybe people will sit up a little straighter and pay attention to the rules. I don't have a dog. I'm not super vested in this personally, but I do think if we do have rules, we do have laws, they need to be enforced. I'm in favor of looking at the budget and seeing if we can hire somebody to complement or enhance our current situation.
Thanks, Amy. Okay, others? Okay.
Hi,
So,
Susan.
yep, go ahead, Susan.
I'm a new puppy owner myself, and I've been finding, I've been going to most of the parks with her, and it's hard to socially distance with a new puppy, to be honest with you. Especially, I mean, even with them on leash, let alone when you do off leash, they run up to people, kids. I just think it's really challenging. I've had people come up to my dog right in my face, and while I really think that it's important to give people opportunities to be outside with their dogs, I'm a huge supporter of that because I spend so much time out with her. I am concerned about that aspect of it. And what Tierra said about masking up, that's a great idea. But just think that it with such a small section of the beach and also so many more new dogs online now, I mean, in the group, like you were saying with licensing, I am a little bit concerned about the volume that's going to come down. Also with the kids in hybrid at this point, I think that there will be more times that they're going to be on those warm days down at the beach playing on the playground. And that's always been my concern at Weed Beach because, you have the tennis courts there, you have the paddle courts, you have the playground, you have the swings. So it's kind of a multi-use beach, a lot of different groups going down there. And, that's a huge concern for me. So I'm kind of really stuck now because I do have a puppy and I understand the joys of being outdoors with her. But I'm also, I have to think hard about safety. And part of me, you're right. Enforcement is such an issue. It's been oh my God, 13 years I've been on the commission. It's always been an issue. It's never gotten better. It seems to get worse, I think. In fact, I think because maybe there's more dogs, to be honest. We hear more stories about, dogs, going up to kids. But I also feel like there's a huge passionate group of people in town that are so good at taking care of their dogs and, have been great role models. And I just don't know if we can figure out a way to partner them. And, I know that they spend a fair amount of time at the beaches enjoying and also at Cherry Lawn. But I feel like, if we can get them to help us maybe get some messaging out there with some signage, positive things. It could be funny things. It doesn't always have to be punitive because I think Jamie Gore always puts together those rhymes with those emails she sends out that are puns that are so hilarious. Maybe we do that. Like there's that church right near high school that always has a saying on the board that they have that's kind of hilarious and it makes you think for a second and then you're like, ooh, I don't want to do that. I don't know. I just don't want it always to be like negative because that hasn't worked for us. Here's a fine. You did something bad. Here's $75 you're gonna have to pay. And obviously we're not giving the fines anyway. But if we could kind of jog people out of that somehow, I don't know.
Susan, with all due respect, I don't think in this case that's
I mean, I'm not saying it's the only thing. I'm just saying I'm desperate to give people a chance to be outdoors with their.
I think
I want something to work.
All I would say is, and I made this statement. I think it even got picked up in the Darien Times earlier in the season. And by the way, I think we're all looking. What's the way to say this? I think we're all sensitive to finding ways for dog lovers to kind of enjoy our parks and under various circumstances. I mean, this discussion around off leash at Weed is not a simple discussion. Having said that, on those same days when dogs are running around off leash at the parks, there are young families with children there as well, and it puts young families in a very uncomfortable position. At the same time, so no, I'm very clear. I think strong enforcement or get rid of the rules. And I think strong enforcement, like I'm in favor of a large fine. And if these fines are being dismissed when somebody goes before a judge, I think we got to let, whoever's kind of, dealing with that side of it know this is a very serious issue for us. And
Hey, Mike,
otherwise, no, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was saying, this is Sarah. I agree with you completely about the enforcement. And I think what I was trying to say earlier is that what we're voting on tonight goes with no enforcement. So we would be extending this program knowing that there is no enforcement. And that is my concern, because we are going to see a lot more people down there, a lot more dogs, a lot more kids at the playground. I just think that we all just need to have our eyes open about, that things are different this year. It's not what it has been. And that, and I'm worried about that. I mean, what if something happens? It's going to come back to us, and I'll feel horrible.
Yeah, I think it should be predicated on moving aggressively with, asking Pam to put a plan together for enforcement now, come back to us quickly. And I think we should, withhold approval of this program at Weed until we can clarify what the enforcement is, what the cost of that is. We have a good model in terms of what we did at the beaches this summer, and an appropriate, fees for fines. And I think you're right on, Sarah. I think if there's anything we've learned here around this question around dogs off leash, it needs to be accompanied by a strong enforcement program. That's my sense.
Okay, thank you. I do see Ms. Kelly raising her hand, but we only have discussion among commission members during this portion.
Okay,
Yeah.
thought I was part of it, but I guess not. New district member, but.
Are you an RTM member?
Yes.
Okay, then I will allow it as an elector. Okay, thank you.
I just have a quick question just about, has anything come up question-wise or about designating a specific dog park where, for example, in New Canaan, I'm a dog owner. I live adjacent to Woodland Park myself, but we go up to New Canaan, where in Waveney Park, they've like cordoned off one specific area where people know that they can bring their dogs off leash. Now, if that's where they're supposed to go, that's where they go, and they know now like elsewhere they have to be on leash. Has that ever come up in discussion wise?
Susan, you want to take that?
Oh yeah, I'll take it. I'm sorry, I was there when that whole thing happened. We were told originally by the dog owners that they weren't interested in a specific park because of that it wasn't good for dog behavior, that it wasn't gonna, there's some dynamic that happens when they're in an enclosed space. Anyway, they weren't interested in it, but we then went ahead and gave them cherry lawn right there by that tennis court that's turning into a pickleball area. That's the off leash all the time 24-hour area. And what happened was that it wasn't fenced, but it was an area. And we did have a couple of accidents where dogs ran into the street. One of them got killed. And there was a proposal before the commission to put a fence up there to at least curb that from happening. And that got voted down by the commission. It was supposed to be an eco project, even though that was what we were told we were going to do, but we never ended up doing it. So that was the thought there, the thought process. Over the years, we also even looked at Diller as a dog area because that was before it got developed into the cross-country trail. But again, nobody really, like, we would put it on our budget and, allocate like $50,000, and people were like, oh no, we don't really want that. So, especially the dog owners at that point. And so we never pursued it,
All right. Thank you.
No problem.
Yeah, and maybe if I could just add to that, maybe just as a reminder too, Woodland and Sellex, we designate those as nature preserves amongst our parks. So, there was a very, I think a very well-informed debate that took place also historically when the question came up around dogs off leash at Sellex, I believe. I'm not sure if Woodland was included in that conversation at the time. And
it was Mike.
So, in terms of the constituencies that are involved here, we've got dog owners who walk with their dogs on leash, dog owners who would like to keep their dogs off leash, young families that are walking, but we've also got wildlife in these nature preserves, and here we are just coming off the heels of a conversation around, pesticides and, the effect on pollinators. And I wasn't around at the time, but I have seen the documentation around that discussion and that debate, and maybe we can bring those folks back in if we feel that's appropriate to kind of remind us of that. But there was a lot of, I think there was a lot of good information suggesting that, the squirrels, chipmunks, all little, critters that live in these, in these nature preserves can be very, very badly traumatized. Now, that may sound kind of silly to some folks who are kind of listening on this conversation, but that's also a constituency that we need to be, if we're concerned about butterflies and bees, I think we need to be consistent in terms of our concern for, the animals that live in these nature preserves as well at the same time. And dogs and those animals don't get along very well. So
Yeah,
I think
Chris
that's
Spillner brought that up
thing.
at the tour when we were at Celix. He brought it up that I think we get a little bit better enforcement, so to speak, at Celix Woods because Chris and the forensic Celix Woods are there. Sounds like almost daily. So there are people who are there quite frequently doing the enforcement on our behalf out of the out of their volunteer time. Okay, Pam.
If I could just add to, I'd like not to have to wait until December, and I would be very quick to get a meeting together with the animal enforcement and Don to make sure that it would be enforced, and then be able to report back to you in December about it. Because I firsthand witnessed, Chip down at the beach at Weed Beach all the time. And so, we could talk about ticket enforcement. I could let them know your concerns, but I know we've been getting phone call after phone call in the office of people very excited to get out walking and with their dog and the holidays coming up. And so I would just like to put that out there.
Okay, well, Pam, I seem to recall we asked Chip to come present to us and he refused.
Pam,
Chip? Did you say Chip, Lori?
Chip, yeah.
That's because he had a bad experience at one point. He didn't feel comfortable.
Well, whatever. Then if we don't have an opportunity to ask the questions and understand his approach to enforcement, he doesn't clearly work for the commission. He doesn't work for the Parks and Rec Department. He's an employee of the police force. So we have no control over his activities or not. It is just not in anything we can deal with. So, okay, we've talked about this topic for a long time. Does anybody have any final comments? And then we should probably move to somebody putting a motion on the table and then getting to a vote. Or vote to not vote.
Can we talk about the hours if we want to vote for it or against it? What hours we would say put in place? I think there was a couple different proposals.
So, I mean, what we have done in the last years is 9 to 1. And again, I was concerned last year, I remain concerned that there's one road in and one road out of Weed Beach. And the traffic on Nearwater Lane is very heavy. And we have school children walking and biking and families before 9. And that's a concern of mine.
The one thing with the hours is if we do have it be starting at dawn, that it might thin out the crowd more. So maybe those walkers with dogs are waiting until like 9, 10 a.m. Maybe they'll go more at 7 a.m. Just a thought.
That was my thought as well, that if we get it from dawn to maybe 10:30, it's less of a risk to the family with kids who are going to the playground as well, which is a concern. Same thought here. That might be an idea.
Also, we're not going to see the same amount of traffic on Nearwater this year because a lot of that traffic is people going to the train, and a lot of people are not going to the train this year. So, and also with the kids being in hybrid now, and I hope not, but probably going to remote, there aren't going to be as many cars on Nearwater. So okay. I think, and I do think
the traffic is very heavy right now, and it has been all since the pandemic started. I think it's heavier than ever, honestly. And so I'm just saying what I see. I say that because I'm home every day now. I'm looking out the window right on the street every day. The traffic is very heavy. And there's a lot of walkers, a lot of joggers, a lot of bike riders, a lot of kids walking to school now, which may or may not change, but I'm just telling you what I see. So somebody can put a motion on the table. Nobody's putting a motion on the table?
I'd move to continue the program. Which hours they are, I'm inclined to do dawn to 10:30 just because it's a concern for children, but I'm also okay with doing it later from 9 to 1 because I'm not as close to the traffic. But I moved to that we continue the program, and I'd move that Pam, you would come back to us with some enforcement recommendations too, whether it's additional signage, someone being there, but something so we know that we are also responding to those concerns for safety too.
Yes, and I could do that all to you once I've confirmed, all through one email to the commission, just so that you know the status of it, and then I can report back in December as well.
Okay, that sounds great.
Can I just add, I don't know if this needs to be added to Kathy's motion, but I'd like to keep our option open so that when Pam, you come back to us in December, if we're not satisfied with the commitment we're getting from, in terms of enforcement, that I think we need to find some money somewhere in this budget, which may mean taking it away from something else, to supplement the enforcement. So I don't think we should kind of assume this is just going to work out okay. Look, I'm serious about this enforcement issue, so
Yeah,
I'm going to be on my soapbox until I'm off the commission on it from now on until it gets resolved.
Yeah, I said I've just kind of had it. I've just really had it.
I believe we can find money in our budget as well for a part-time and add a job in town for the 4 months.
Yeah,
are you talking about the summer or over the winter?
I'm talking about over the winter, if that's a concern.
Yeah, and it's a safety issue, not just an enforcement issue.
Right. It's an enforcement issue because it's a safety issue.
I don't think we had a second. No second?
I second that.
I can say it.
And what were the times that we decided on for the motion?
I gave you both. I don't know. I really don't know. What is the better time? Pam, what are your thoughts? I'd look to your expertise here.
Personally, I like the dawn to 10:30 because it's consistent with what the commission has done in the past with the other parks.
But the other parks, I'm just telling you that the traffic is really bad. And there's a lot of kids, a lot of walkers.
Can we review that in December? And if that needs to be changed, we can change it?
What are we going to review? How are we going to review it? Be specific.
If we can review it from the time it starts to the next meeting to see if traffic was an issue.
What are we going to do, a traffic count? I mean, practically speaking, how does that happen?
I guess we could ask the assistance of those using the facility for dog walking.
Do you think there'll be so much volume? I guess is my question from this as well. I don't know. I don't know how many dogs go down or people go down, but we'll increase it so much that the traffic will be bad. I don't have the answer.
But on the other hand, everybody's saying there's so many more dogs and so many more puppies. Everybody wants this. So that would imply we do expect a lot of usage.
So at this point, why don't we stick to the 9 to 1 until we want to, in December, if we want to make some changes? We've had it from 9 to 1 for the last 2 years. It seems to have worked. I do know that there's people out there that would like to have early morning hours, but besides that, we certainly can review it and come back in December and talk about it again.
Good with that.
Yeah, I think that sounds good.
Okay, I guess we're ready for a vote then. There's no more discussion.
Yeah, just one request. Pam, can you forward along to the commission the costs that we incurred for the kind of supplemental security at the beaches over the summer, just so we have some kind of frame of reference to understand as this conversation comes back up in December what we're talking about potentially? So we took on supplemental security for the beaches through the summer. We added
Yes.
to the normal security mix, right? So if you can just forward along to the commission members what those incremental costs were. Essentially, what does it cost us to have a security guard?
Right. I think that type of security guard would be different than the security guard that we're looking at now. There would be two types. There would be somebody that we could actually hire from the community as a part-time job. The security guard was from a security company that had, it was $29 an hour with a company car. So it would depend whether we were having this particular part-time job strictly for, Weed Beach and Woodland Park, right? More simplified, or it would be all the parks. I mean, we would really have to discuss this at length, but I think the security guard, I mean, you're talking, $35,000 additional for the season. And I don't think that this particular thing in the winter we would pay that much. But again, I don't think we'd go toward the company.
Yeah, I don't know what I'm talking about in terms of the cost. That's why I'm asking you to come back to us with cost. But I think we want, whatever we do, we want it to be taken seriously. So if you can come back to us with a proposal that includes costs, or if we're going to take some measure, we need to get an impact and an effect out of it that we think is the appropriate effect.
I will come back with costs.
Someone who can issue tickets, someone who'll be taken seriously, someone who can call in to help if they need help. It's serious. This is a very serious issue, and it may not appear to be as serious at Weed as it is, in my opinion, at Woodland, but it's serious from my perspective.
Okay.
It might be more serious at Weed because of the children's playground. So,
I'm sorry.
it might be, so that's
Yeah, no, I'm not saying it's not. Don't get me wrong. I mean, I agree for all those reasons, and that it's something we need to pay attention to in both locations.
I just had another thought. I don't know if it's a good idea. We typically, when we have proved this, we've done it for the season, and there seems to be a lot of uncertainty about volume and times and all this other stuff. Is it worthwhile considering, I know we meet monthly, taking 1 month at a time? I mean, so that just because of the just not sure how many dogs we're going to expect. I mean, or is that crazy?
It's fine with me.
I think that's a great idea, Susan.
Just try it for the month. If we don't have a tremendous amount of volume or issues that come about, and if enforcement isn't fixed, Mike, then we say, you know what, we might have to, we'll have to tweak this a little bit. But I mean, my inclination is that, if we keep it as a short term, people might be more incented to treat it as like a privilege versus a right, and maybe value it more, treasure it more. And, just maybe we say very specifically on the signage, we're doing this for a month. We'd like it to work. We want you guys to have this space, but you guys have to self-police somewhat and help us out, because there are safety concerns and traffic concerns, yada, yada. I think that would make it more comfortable for me to say that and not worry about the safety of children at the park beaches or the safety of people coming down, near Water Lane. I mean, I think these are good considerations. I think you guys have thought of a lot of good things, and I just want to, because of that, I also don't want us to be kind of our hands tied behind, oh my God, enforcement was a nightmare. We never got it off the ground, and now we're stuck with 3 months of looking at people going to the playground with dogs. Just a thought, So anyway, I would support that. I hope, anybody that might be on the fence might consider it too.
And I think also, I mean, you guys are so good, Pam, you guys are so good with social media. If we really publicize that, we're only doing this for a month to see how it goes, you guys let everybody know what the rules are. And if they don't follow them, and then there'll be a consequence.
Okay, so are we amending the motion?
I have a question. Lori,
Yes.
I was kind of trying to amend it as you guys were going. Do you want me just to read what I have and see if everyone is on board?
That would be great. Thank you.
All right, so motion to continue the dog pilot
Not to
program.
continue, to establish.
Okay. Motion to establish the dog pilot program at Weed Beach from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. Sorry, I told you I've amended it a lot as you guys were talking. With Pam returning in December with enforcement and safety updates with the potential to retract or change if revenue for enforcement is not supported.
I don't think that's quite it. I think we can just, I don't think we have to call it a pilot program anymore because we've done it for a few years, but I think it's just, the motion is to allow dogs on Weed Beach. We need to reference the specific area of Weed Beach and the hours and just set whether we're going to go from this weekend or go from Thanksgiving Day, and then set a beginning date and an end date. And if that end date's December 26th or 24th or whatever.
So we meet on December 16th again. So we should have a date, obviously, just around there. So we could then do the extension so that there's never a break.
Okay.
Just a thought, so.
So we'd go right after that.
And Susan, I think it's a great idea. I would just like to make sure that we add to it that, Pam, that you would communicate that out through the social media channels, that it's only for a month, and that we put signage up. So people understand that people who aren't on those social media channels, they also see the signage too. They're on notice.
Yes.
What about if we just tried out dawn to 1 just for the month to see if that thins out the traffic? How would you guys feel about that? If it's just for a month, and then if it's too crowded for school, then we just put it back to 9.
I personally like this idea because a lot of people walk their dogs very early, but I like that idea of trying it for a month.
I still have the issue of putting more cars on the street when kids are going to school and getting on the buses, but that's just me.
Why don't we just keep it the way it is, 9 to 1, and do it for a month? And if we want to make it earlier, depending on what goes on with school, if we go full remote, that traffic that Lori's citing might go away. And then we could just extend it to the dawn time, which, Tierra, you've proposed. I just, because right now they're going to school and, there's so many, things that might change very quickly. So I think that by doing it a month at a time, we're nimble enough to adjust to that. And that obstacle might go away if they're not going. So just a thought. So I would keep it to 9 to 1 to keep it simple for now.
Yeah, I'm good to move forward on that.
Okay. Are we clear on the motion? Jamie, do you have it?
I thought you.
That's a no.
I thought you didn't like it. I thought you were gonna do a new motion.
Okay, I believe the motion is to allow dogs at Weed Beach off leash in the designated area of the park between the hours of 9 and 1 from, do we want to say the day before Thanksgiving? From November 25th until December, when's our next meeting?
16th.
Okay, so, sorry, looking at the calendar. So whether you could say December 18th, I guess, or 19th, which would be that Friday?
Sure, that'll give us enough time to hopefully figure things out.
Okay.
Should we
Parks
say,
and Rec, and then add Parks and Rec director to provide recommendations on enforcement to the commission at its December meeting?
Can we be very specific that other than that time specified, that dogs are not allowed at the beach? Because I think
Yes.
that's a challenge is sometimes people say, well, it's just an off leash that time and that we're allowed here the rest of the time.
Right.
I think we
Right.
should make it crystal clear that
Right.
it's at all, that's the only time dogs are allowed in the beach. I don't know how to,
Right.
if we can make that very specific.
Yeah, I agree.
Because, you know, then someone say, well, I'm walking here with my dog on leash, but you're not supposed to
Right.
be at the beach anymore. You know, that program, that
Maybe
time is over.
Other than the designated off-leash area, dogs are not allowed either on or off-leash in any other parts of the park.
Okay.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. We all good with the motion? And that was Kathy was making the motion and Tier was the second. Do I have that right?
Yes, ma'am.
I'm still doing so. Okay. Okay, we're ready to vote.
Sorry. Lori,
I'm still a no.
Susan,
A yes.
Mary Louise,
No.
Amy,
So a tough one. I guess I'm going to say yes. And I'm going to be interested in hearing how, I'm going to be interested in the discussion in December.
Mike,
Yes.
Sarah,
Yeah.
Lucy.
Yes.
That's everybody.
Pam, can you communicate with Chip that we are considering looking to hire someone to cover this? Because, you know, it is his job, and it's the fact that he is not seemingly doing it to the level that we would like him to, that we now have to look at alternatives. I think he should be aware of that.
Yes, I will speak to him, but I will tell you, he was there a lot. He does not work weekends. So we might have to look at weekends because he was parked at Weed Beach.
I think that Pam, the issue is specifically that he is not giving tickets.
There's
Right,
no
we'll talk to him about
evidence.
that.
There's no evidence of enforcement. Zero.
I mean, he's
Zero.
showing up, but no one has gotten a ticket. That's my understanding unless there's new news. But based on our last discussion, there were no tickets.
Yes, we'll talk to him.
Thanks,
I'll
Pam.
report back.
Not an easy conversation, so thanks.
You're welcome.
Okay. Next, long agenda. Okay. Pickleball. I think this is a happier topic, perhaps. Okay. We did hear from a few speakers this evening, and Sean, who may be gone by now, he was there for a while. Oh no, his desk is still there. He's not there, but his desk is there. So we did look at this at the, oh, there he's back. We did look at this during the park tour, and there was discussion about that there seemed to be adequate space to restripe the one independent tennis court that's closest to Brookside Road. I guess remove the striping for tennis altogether and then have the pickleball courts run at 90 degrees from the way they are now. And there was some discussion that that would be better because of the way the sun rises and sets and cause some issue for the players as well. And the impression that I know that I took away from when we looked at it was that this was something that could be done very sort of simply and relatively inexpensively, whatever relative is. So then, Pam, I was surprised when I saw in your capital budget like $165,000. So I just, maybe you could talk about what that disconnect is.
Well, the first disconnect was that I wasn't part of that conversation in the park tour walk about you know, having the courts be done over that way. Jim Coughlin and I, when we discussed our capital budget, we would be putting forth. He got the estimate from the company that did the tennis courts at Weed Beach, which at the time, the town was very in favor of doing post-tension courts. Knowingly, they are much more expensive, but they last a lot longer. So 8 years later, there's not a single crack in those courts. They need to be repainted, but they're in great shape. With asphalt, typically, you know, early on, you'll start getting cracking and then you end up starting to have to, you know, patch them like our tennis courts at Cherry Lawn. So unbeknown to me that there was talk about, you know, conversion of just doing a cheap kind of fix. That's what we were planning behind the scenes to present to the Park and Rec Commission. So that number can disappear, but that's with all intentions. We were understanding that the town really wanted to put together good facilities that were going to last.
Okay. How were you not there when we were talking about? We were all right.
Because my car was up in near the gardens and we were supposed to be going to McGuan. So I hopped in my car, went to McGuan, and you guys were huddled near the pickleball court when I was going, but I was meeting the concession.
Oh, okay.
What was your budget for this, and how long would it take to make courts from your estimation if you all controlled it?
For which option?
For the pickleball courts, if you put on the better type of surface, how long? What would that be?
Well, it would have to be budgeted. So if we put the 165,000, which we got a quote for 4 post-tension courts that were brand new. So this is new construction. Then we would we wouldn't get the money until July 1st of 2021. And we would have to go out to bid. So there'd be a bidding process. So it could indeed cost us a lot less because there are people that are looking for work. With our basketball court, one company did bid post-tension, which was, I think he came in just under 50,000, but we weren't, our bidding process didn't ask for post-tension. So it's very likely we could get it done a lot less cheap.
But Pam, can you be specific? Are you talking about redoing the existing single tennis court? Are you talking about leaving that there and then digging out something completely different somewhere else in Cherry Lawn?
The 165,000 would be to reconstruct the current single tennis court. Okay. So removing it and reconstructing it in that space, making it a little larger, a little bit more space, you know, to accommodate 4 courts. However, I did get in touch with Fairfield director because they recently converted a tennis court to pickleball courts, and he did confirm that they fit 4 courts on their single tennis court in that conversion, and it fit fine. So I don't know how much it cost and how they went about the job scope, but I will find that out.
Pam, it seems to me if you have a relatively even surface now, which it appears to be, there don't seem to be any major cracks in it. And by simply reorienting where the nets are and so on, you can get 4 courts in, and you've got someone who's able to raise whatever money it takes to surface it, repaint the lines and put 4 nets up, and it's not going to cost the town anything. Why would you not go with that? And in view of the fact that it is so popular, I think it's a great idea to consider putting in a second one a year from now, separate and apart from the one that's already there. But why not take advantage of what already exists?
I couldn't agree more. I was just simply answering why we had $165,000 in the capital budget. I was unaware of the plans. So yes, and I was unaware that Sean would come out and state that there would be enough people to donate to this project. So yeah, I think that's incredibly generous.
Okay.
We would still have to go out to bid, mind you. So that it could get taken care of quicker because we could do it in this fiscal year, but it would still have to go to bid.
Other commission thoughts, comments, questions? Amy is our resident Cherry Lawn person.
Well, I guess I'm just curious. I didn't see any letters from tennis players, and there hasn't been any discussion about usage of the tennis courts and how this is going to affect them. I think the pickleball sounds great. There seems to be a lot of support in that regard. I just would like to hear a little bit. Maybe Jim, you could tell us about tennis and how this will affect the tennis players.
Well, I mean, you're losing one tennis court. I mean, you're going to have people who aren't, or that are tennis players and aren't happy. But I can tell you right now, there's a lot of people that are loving pickleball, and I think you're going to be serving a lot more people by putting in 4 pickleball courts than you are one single tennis court. The other thing to note is the high school just redid all their tennis courts in post-tension concrete. I think, that seems like Pam mentioned. I think that was the way that the commission was looking at things 8 years ago. That's the way to do the construction of courts. It would be nice if I don't even know if you guys would want to even consider a public-private partnership where money's raised by whatever group of pickleball players and the town contributes too, and maybe you look at putting in a post-tension facility, which is going to last. That gives you a guaranteed 25 years of no cracking. Instead, you're going to be basically using an asphalt surface that you're going to have to be fixing and patching and painting every 2 or 3 years. But that's obviously your decision to make on that. But in terms of pickleball versus tennis, I think you're going to be serving a lot more people by putting in 4 pickleball courts versus 1 tennis court.
And that court, is it by reservation other than lessons, or is it just first come, first serve?
That court is, first come, first serve. Yeah.
So we don't have a sense from reservations how many people are reserving it to play pickleball versus tennis. So it's more just anecdotal information in terms of whether it's getting used more for pickleball versus tennis.
Yes, but you're going to be fitting a lot more people playing pickleball than you will for tennis.
Going forward, yeah, I understand just by the numbers, but I'm just saying up until now, what I seem to be hearing is most people are using it because
it's pickleball right now. It's all pickleball right now.
All right, so the pickleball people have sort of taken it over, and they're waiting their turn and all playing pickleball, as opposed to some tennis players sort of in line and then switching it back over and playing a game of tennis and then back and forth.
Right.
Lori, we took the tennis nets down off that court, so it's no more tennis there right now. We made it officially because during the COVID atmosphere, we didn't want lines and things like that with tennis and pickleball. So we made it a temporary pickleball court until we made some decisions.
Okay, so then to Amy's point, have you received any complaints from the tennis community that they're down a court? No. Okay. Does that help, Amy?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Okay.
Yes, my other question would be, how would we set up this program with, I mean, this is sort of leaking into a tangential topic, but how are we going to set up kind of the reservations, and would it be similar to the paddle courts, and what sort of imposition does that put on you and your team, Jim, and that kind of thing? But I think that's a tangential topic to the matter at hand, which is, which direction are we going to go to with this court and setting it up as soon as possible?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I guess whatever the commission decides to do, whether you want to whenever you want to get courts built, if it's a facility that you want to rent out or take reservations for, we could do that. I mean, I guess that would be a decision, we'd have to make internally, or if it's something where, where most of the tennis courts are first come, first serve. I think that's a question to answer probably down the line.
Yeah, I think so, based on usage, et cetera.
Yeah, so more like, does it drop in, or is it more like the paddle tennis courts where people sign up for, weekly slots or whatever, and they're assigned to a certain court for a certain season? We would, I guess, decide if people want to be able to reserve, Tuesdays at 5 o'clock or whatever on court 1, and they pay a fee for that, reservation, or whether it's just drop-in, we could look at down the road.
Right.
Because so I think that it gets down to really 2 things. One is whether the commission is in favor of really permanently changing that 1 court to a pickleball. It sounds like that sort of has been done already, and whether that's supported, and then whether we would want to go the route of, pursuing, working with the community to raise funding to do a kind of restriping and the minimal amount of work that does to get it done quickly, as opposed to the longer term process of really doing a longer term rebuilding of the facility, which I know generally I feel we've all been supportive about, building and maintaining really, quality facilities for our folks, but 165,000 ticket, if that's the right number, it's a much longer slog to get the money, and I don't have a good sense in this environment whether there's the appetite in town for a budget number of that amount or not. I just don't have a sense. I'm not overly confident. We haven't gone into budget season yet, but that it's a big ticket for 1 court, and whether we could get that or not, I just don't know. So the alternative would be, as Mary Louise pointed out, sort of a quicker hit. It would not be the ideal surface that we would all love to see, but that could be something we could pursue further down the road. I guess we might have to understand, Sean, how volunteers of their money would feel that if 3 years down the road, the town came back and said, woohoo, now we got our 160,000, we want to redo this the right way. Would they say, yeah, but we paid for this? Or would they just be so happy it was improving that they'd be okay? I mean, that's hard to know how people would feel about that. So, okay. So, Sean, yes,
I think that if the town wanted to spend $165,000, it would be the Taj Mahal of pickleball courts. I think everyone would be really happy with that.
Okay.
But you pointed out the climate, $165,000. If it were my money, and I like to play pickleball, I would.
We're clear on that.
But if the town does want to do it, there's still plenty of room, and not only at that park, but other parks to put it in. This is already existing. It's a quicker fix. It's kind of, for me, a no-brainer. Here's the money. Here's the court. Would it be a better court? Yes. But look, I'm happy with my car. It gets me where I go. I'm not buying a Ferrari, but I would sure like one. So, but if you get $165,000,
right,
there's plenty of room for another court. But right now, it's just fine to use, and we can make the 4 courts relatively inexpensive and play pickleball. And as far as going back to reservations and first comes, first served, I actually play in Rhode Island. There's a website where people sign up and have open play. They have so many people that come up. They put the paddle on their paddle on the fence, and as they rotate people in, so they, whoever wins, if they play twice, they have to sit out one, and they just go down the line. It's really a good thing, and they have special apps for it to sign up for people to go, and you can still have the town make money by having 2 courts, doing their lessons and so forth. Win-win situation.
Okay.
I've got a million things to do, and I know you guys do too, but I'm willing to do this and pick up the pickleball and run with it.
Okay, thank you, Sean.
So is 100 other people, by the way.
Great.
That's where we're gonna
It
get the money.
seems like the least friction solution here.
Yep. Okay.
No brainer.
All right, so it sounds like maybe we're ready to have someone make a motion, which I think would include a permanent conversion of the one sort of freestanding tennis court at Cherry Lawn into a pickleball court, and to work with a group of citizens to raise the money, and then we would have to work together to get some kind of understanding of the component and the cost, so you knew how much you needed to raise. And then,
Put it up to date.
as I think you understand possibly from the town gift rules, is that to accept any one gift of 10,000 or more would have to be approved by the RTM. If it's a number of small gifts, each individual gift under 10,000, we can accumulate those and go over 10,000. And then as Pam cites, we would need to have them know we have the money locked in, and then we would go to bid and get bidders to see if we can do it within the amount of money raised.
Understandable.
Okay.
I move that we move to making the tennis court a permanent pickleball court. And we work to raise the funds to pay for it.
Okay.
Can I second?
Can I just clarify? I think we're also saying that the court will be striped as four individual pickleball courts, right, Sean?
Yes.
Yeah, 4 courts and 4 nets, 4 permanent pickleball nets, which are different than.
Yes. Okay, so the motion should include the fact that we're talking about actually creating four individual pickleball courts.
Correct, on 1 court.
On one tennis court.
Right for one.
From the one tennis court into 4 pickleball courts.
Correct.
Okay, yeah, that's more specific. That's good. Okay. And Lucy, you're seconding?
Yep, fastest growing sport in America.
Okay. Someday I'll learn.
Sure.
Okay. Any more discussion? No. Okay. Jamie, you can roll call us, please.
Lori,
Yes.
Susan,
Yes.
Kathy,
Yes.
Amy,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Tier,
Yes.
Sarah.
Yes.
That's everybody.
Right?
Okay. All right.
Thank
Go
you
out
so
and raise
much.
the money.
That's the hard part.
Okay.
Thank you, Sean. Thanks,
Thank you.
Thank you,
I
Sean.
really appreciate it. Have a good Thanksgiving.
Okay.
And speak on
You
the
as well.
courts, all of you.
Okay. Okay, crew. So the hour is getting very late. We had on here discussion and debrief from Commission Parks Tour, but I know Pam also needs to talk about the budget. So are we good skipping the Parks Tour debrief for now? I know we touched on a number of the things that we saw and commented on either in the minutes approval or in some of these discussions. So, and I'm sensitive to, we've been at this for a long time and it is getting late. So, okay. So Pam, do you want to present though? This is just a preliminary presentation tonight, correct?
Yes. But we will need to vote on it December 16th, because actually Finance would like to have it December 13th, so I'm already pushing it out.
Okay.
So let's start with the budget. There's really very few changes from last year. So I'm going to just point out the changes. So we can start with the revenue. And what jumped out at me was the beach parking permits, which you'll see the fiscal year actual of 344, and then the revised budget, which is 300. And I clarified with Finance Director Jen Ternesky that was reduced by the Board of Finance due to COVID And in my proposal of 2021, I brought it back up to the 345 because we actually brought in so much. Sorry? Oops. So we actually brought in the 344,000 with the beach parking permits, with the anticipation that we weren't sure what was going to happen during the pandemic, but we became even more busy through the months. So my proposal is to stick to that 345. And then the 80 jumps out in the park and rec program fees. And this again is just I'm looking at the activity and the amount of programs that we've just doubled or tripled. So, and this park and rec program fee has been new to our budget because it was usually always in a different account, and just recently all the money has been brought over into the budget. So this 80 may shake out to be correct. It may shake out to be under or over. So we're just going to have this year to see how that additional 80 plays into our budget and our revenues. And if we move down into the expense categories, I've circled the overtime salary, the seasonal and temporary salary. There was a slight reduction there. If you move down to the 32,266 in security services, that is additional expenses that I'm proposing to keep that security patrol guard on duty. The facility maintenance materials, there's a slight increase in those maintenance materials, which is mulch for the playgrounds. Rescue equipment, there's a slight increase, $2,000 for additional AED equipment that Jim Coughlin and I implemented. And then seasonal and temporary side, there's a slight reduction in expenses because historically the numbers have been low. So we brought that down. The rest of the changes there, 500, 369, 808 are just slight increases and decreases. And on the second page, you'll see potable water with a slight decrease of 1750. So really very flat budget other than the 32,266 for the security guard.
Pam?
Yes.
I have a question for you under your revenue, your rental for building rent.
Yes.
What is that? Is that for the paddle court building?
Yes, paddle court building rent.
Yeah, it's interesting because it was actually really low because of COVID. And did you just, you bumped it up or?
Well, because we were told to go into this budget year as if it's going to be a normal year.
Okay.
So budget as if it's going to be a normal year. Don't budget as if it's going to be a COVID year. So that's what I did.
Yeah, I just wasn't sure what the restrictions, like how many people are going to be able to rent that facility and have like a big group of people there for the foreseeable future. Or do we police that? I'm just,
Yeah, it's just a budget number projection. On a normal year, I would have put in 12.
Right.
So we'll see how the year pans out.
Okay.
And if everyone's okay with that, we certainly can come back in December with any, further additions or implementations that we want to put in, or leave it as is, and we can vote on that in December 16th. Pam, what did you assume in terms of increases in terms of the cost of the beach stickers? Well, we bought an additional box of stickers this past summer, but Jim, if you can confirm this with me, we bought it, but we didn't go through it. So. No, but what I'm asking is, as we haven't yet voted on, I think next month we have to vote on what we're going to charge. For a sticker, and whether we're going to increase those fees or not, which would be one way to offset
the cost of the security, which this year we were allocated because it was really considered somewhat of a COVID expense for crowd control. But if it's something we want to be as an ongoing program, and it gets back to the lengthy discussion we had about enforcement and making sure if we set parks rules that we have the ability to enforce them beyond dogs. There's, we have a lot of different rules that need enforcement, and we found that the security team did a really good job of doing that this year. But one way to fund that is we have to think about increasing the sticker fees and or other sources of revenues to pay for. And that gets, back to Mike's, very firm point about the importance of, enforcement of park rules, is that we have to have the mechanism to do so. And way to do that is to increase our different fees. So I don't know if you had made an assumption about fees increases in this or whether you had held them flat.
I held them flat.
Okay. So I think that's something we need to discuss as we go through the budget, and whether it's a time. And I know in the past we've held them flat, saying, well, the fee is for services, a newer pavilion, or this or that. But if we really feel that it's important for the quality of life for everybody in use of our parks and harmonious use, to make sure that we have enforcement of park rules so that people can happily use them together, then I think that's something that's a cost of doing business and offering our park services to the town, and we have to embed that in what we charge for our services. Would be something I think we need to think very hard about.
I agree. I don't necessarily think that it has to be projected in this budget. We could or we couldn't. We could boost the numbers up under the fact that we were going to be revisiting this. Or we leave it flat, and then if we come to the determination of changing the fees in January, then our revenue is going to show, increases by the end of the year anyway, if we change the fees.
Yeah, well, I just think we should have a view on it as we're proposing the budget, because as we have to sell the budget to the, to Kate, to the Board of Selectmen and the Board of Finance, to say that we're proposing this, increase, personnel costs, but we plan to pay for it ourselves, or via these other sources. I think that's going to be very important.
I agree.
So I think that's something we need to be discussing as a commission, probably at the next, the next meeting. Yeah, because the two are really linked.
Yes.
I have two questions. Under pest control, is that for the geese? Are you revisiting the geese? Okay. Because it sounds like your other efforts didn't, or alternatives didn't really quite pan out.
You can say it.
There was some complaints about that. And then the second question is, in your budget, do you have the cost of dealing with Highland Farms? Is that rolled in here somehow? Like your staffing and stuff? So just something to consider, that, there is some of your budget is to take care of that, right?
Yes.
Like staffing, materials, whatever you might need. So with the organic, if they decide to go full organic, that would be on our budget, or is that going to be on their budget?
No, it'll be on our budget, and we would have to budget for it.
Okay. Just, it's good for us to know that, right? As a commission.
Yes.
Yeah, we may want to be able to, at least when you're describing this, or we're describing this to the various boards, really cull out what's really coming from the selectmen. In other words, I don't want the commission and what we're trying to accomplish to be hampered by increases that are needed for Highland, which is not under our control because it's not a designated park.
Right. I do want to clarify, Susan, the pest control, that number hasn't changed. We've always kept that 5,000 in there for alternatives. So I've been talking to the Kate and Jamie behind the scenes about whether or not we bring back in a company and or a different idea that we have. So this figure come December could either stay at 5 or go back up to the 15 or 18 that we used to have for a company. So that's an increase you may see in December.
Right, and you would also have to do Highland in that mix too, right?
Yes, which may make it a larger number.
When I was there was definitely.
Well, the interesting thing with Highland is that we're getting increased usage now, but we haven't had any programming on it. So, right, so the more program, the busier it gets, we may see less action from geese like Cherry Lawn.
Yeah, and if you get dogs to go on leash,
Yep.
it'll change it up too.
Exactly.
Okay, thanks.
Hey, Pam, can you point
Yes.
out any items in terms of actuals over the prior year, current prior year, that we were over budget on in terms of expenses?
I didn't point that out.
We don't have a kind of budget to actual for the prior year, for the current year.
We have our actuals from 2020 here.
I'm just trying to understand it, are there things where, we may have a risk of just kind of running over budget in terms of expenses? Where you've maybe traditionally have been over budget?
Yeah, no, I've really paid good attention to areas where I've had, ample money, and certainly Kate looks down on that. She really wants us not to hold taxpayers' money, so try to be as close as possible to the expense itself and not have an overage. And
Yeah, I mean,
no, I don't.
I'm sorry, I was just going to, maybe just to clarify, thinking of things like, as an example, equipment maintenance or small tools, or, there's a small number, but,
yeah, there are some
normal.
Equipment maintenance, and it sometimes can run, like, for instance, there was in fiscal year 19, we spent 9,200. But then in the 2020, we were down to 7,700. So some of those can fluctuate depending on, the equipment that we didn't plan on breaking down, or, an emergency fix that had to get done. But typically, I'm not showing a lot of areas where if I know we're going to overspend, I make sure I increase it.
Can you just drop another column in here then for the budget number for the prior year alongside the actual when we get together in December?
Sure. And so you want a actual of?
Yeah, I'd just like to be able to kind of visualize, how we did last year as compared to the budget.
So you want it for fiscal 20, which is the full year past.
Correct. Yes.
Not the year we're in the middle of.
Right, that is fiscal year 2020 is the full year.
Right.
Right.
That column is there.
But it's only the actual, it's not the budget.
We don't have the budget though for it.
Oh, gotcha. Okay, gotcha.
So we're trying to see where we've gone over, and then so that we can understand why did we go over. I mean, this year there may be areas for fiscal 21 that we go over that are very specific to expenses related to COVID. And I think maybe they're, being looked at slightly differently, but I think what Mike's trying to get a feel for is, if there's areas that historically we've had to go above budget, just how should we be thinking about those? But you can't tell from this. It just shows like what we actually spent.
Okay.
Yeah, I just think when we're showing actuals, it's always just helpful when we're having a budget conversation to show the budget numbers alongside the actuals. That's all. That's possible.
Okay.
It kind of helps to see a trend theoretically, right?
Gotcha.
And what's in our control and what's out of, because sometimes there's items come up that are just completely out of our control. If you have a major piece of equipment breakdown, or
exactly.
Roof falls in, or just major repairs, or just things come up, you have to pay a lot of overtime because we have a lot of snowstorms, or the crew's out doing overtime helping do the cleanup this week, things like that nature. Just understand where those changes come from. I mean, that was a Sunday night storm, so people could have been out work. I don't know if your team was out overnight working or not, but those are the types of things that are expense changes to budget that, may not be in your control.
Right. Understood. Okay, so if there's no more questions on that, then would you like to move to capital?
Sure.
Okay, so we've X'd out the 165 for the pickleball.
Or do you want to kick that? Do you want to move that out a few years as something that we might think in a couple of years, we don't want to add a second court somewhere.
I do. I think that would be smart.
Okay.
Yes.
So perhaps move it out to realistically 24, 25, or too far out?
Too far out.
Okay.
I don't even play, and I was going to say that sounds too far out based on what we're hearing.
2023, 24?
How about 22, 23?
Okay.
You're going to be making so much money, Pam. From the existing one, it can pay for itself.
Okay, we can put it there. So let's just start at the top. We have our equipment replacement program, and that fluctuates from year to year. I'm still waiting on Jim Flynn's 6-year equipment program, which may change that a bit. 15,000 update. And now I do understand that the Board of Finance was meeting last night about some of these ongoing capital equipment program, like the playground and the tree replacement program. So I don't know whether they have cut that or left that in, but we shall see. Weed Beach Tennis Court repaint, which was deferred from last fiscal year. So we want to get that work done. So we can keep that in there. And the Woodland Park parking repairs came in at 20. That's to clean up that parking lot and repave it, or not even repave, pave it, because it's not paved at all. So and I did get a quote from the sport tech company that just did the basketball at Cherry Lawn that came in at 20.
Hey, Pam, why are you paving? It's a nature preserve. So
we've had some complaints about the parking lot area there and how we feel that if it was paved, we might be able to make a couple more spots.
Yeah, they're
So
not
that was
very
the
lined up. They're very uneven, and I think because it's a natural material, it washes out a lot. So certain spots are just unparkable. And given the volume of visitors and that being the only parking lot, it's really critical. And people end up parking in front of the emergency road access for, I guess, what would be any emergency vehicles that need to go in there. So,
yes.
I mean, I understand what you're saying. Yeah, you're right. We don't want to have too much impervious surface, but
Yeah.
I also feel like that park's been the one that we've spend the least amount of money in terms of resources. And it is used very well by a lot of people that live around there, but also people that do drive there and like to use the facility and look at. I mean, so I had trouble myself, and I have a 4-wheel drive, and I was like, ooh, this was kind of fun, and getting in and out. I think if people knew where the lines were, they would do a better job parking and thus allow more spaces to be there. Right now, people, it's like on natural, and people just go where they feel like.
Yeah, I guess I would love to spend more money on other parts of the park than a parking lot. So I understand what you're saying, but I think, if you could clear some of the trails more and fix some of the bridges.
You know what? That's a good point. I find that, what I've been finding since I do the Eagle Scout projects too, the scouting programs really seem, especially the scouts seem to kind of want to do their programs there. And they've really had a lot of people that are naturally interested, which is awesome. I think it's a lot to the surrounding community because the kids that live around there. I mean, we just had one project where Owen Coventry wants to do the bridge. Cormac Brown did the trails. There's been so many projects over the years, and I keep on getting more, and the nice thing is Sophie Cirillo has been really good about advocating and really trying our best to make sure that Woodland gets some attention from volunteers and funders. So I just think that this is something that might be too big of a ticket. Personally, I didn't propose this. I'm just speaking, since I saw it. But it has been a concern of mine, just knowing how the usage, it's very hard. I mean, I drive there, so it might be different for you if you walk there.
Yeah, I
So,
definitely walk there. It's down
yeah,
the street.
and we've over the years we've done a lot of scout projects there, and I'll invite a bunch of parents to come and do raking and wood chips, and I'm like, ooh, where are we gonna park? I mean, because West Avenue's out, obviously, right? And now you have the story walk from the Girl Scouts, which is awesome. So we want to make sure we make that a very efficient parking lot as a result.
I can certainly look into a different material though too.
Can I
Yeah,
just ask, have we?
that's where I was
sorry,
kind of going. It's a nature preserve. And so, and it really is one. So that's where I was going to, is that I thought of the Joni Mitchell song, You Pave Paradise and You Put Up a Parking Lot.
That's pretty funny. That's pretty funny.
So I think if we could look into other materials that might be cheaper for you during this. Just an idea.
Sure.
Yeah,
I have a question.
Go ahead, Mike.
I'm sorry, go ahead. Look. Yeah, I was just going to ask, have we considered, and there may be lots of considerations here, and there's probably a conversation that maybe predates me, but have we ever considered a slight increase in the size of the parking lot or parking area? Because I drive past there regularly on weekends, certainly, in beautiful weather, and there are cars lined up on Middlesex that can't get in. And it may be for various reasons, like maybe the cars that are there don't leave enough space, but there are definitely cars that are lined up on Middlesex. I'm not suggesting doubling the size of it, but have we ever considered I can't kind of visualize what the topography of the terrain looks like, if it's possible.
Mike, there's a lot of cars. I mean, trees, they're big trees. I've looked at it a few times thinking that to myself, and there are a lot of old big trees around there. And I thought that, and because of the way those trees surround that parking area, it is challenging. I mean, maybe someone could figure out, but I figure that we're going to have to do something with at least one or two trees to kind of get there. Maybe Pam knows the answer. She's raising her hand.
Well, there's park master plan in the park. In the park master plan, there was okay. We mentioned additional parking in the parks master plan and Woodland, but it wasn't adjacent to that, I don't think. We'll have to look at that. But Mike, yes, I think that we have been considering more parking, but to Susan's point, there's a lot of trees.
I love trees. I love trees, but if it kind of took some traffic off of cars off of Middlesex and made it a little easier to just get in and out, and coupled with I think Kathy's point of maybe using some alternative materials, and even just like parking headers, like 8x8s kind of at a head of where somebody pulls into. There's different ways you can do that. So it may just be worth taking another look at. And,
I agree.
I don't know. I mean, I may be in a minority, but I would, I wouldn't lose sleep over taking a couple of trees down if in return for that, you get maybe a little bit more efficient parking area.
Yeah. Amy?
You can always leave the 20 in. Go ahead, Amy.
Oh, yeah. Well, I was just going to say that I've been over there a couple of times. I love the Girl Scout walk that they just did. That was really wonderful. If people have gotten the opportunity to do that, I'm sure you'll agree. But I have noticed we do need more room in there. And I do think it would be too bad to put in a parking lot with lines. It's just, you drive in there and it's just, you're automatically in the woods when you're in that parking lot. I think if we could get some efficiencies, make it more efficient to just move and turn around. And I was a little worried somebody was going to bash into somebody else's car. I think there was a big rock in there that maybe could be moved. And Mike's right, maybe we have to lose one or two trees. But I do think it would be too bad to pave Paradise.
Yeah, and you can also, as we did up at Highland, you can put down crushed stone and you can stripe the stone.
Nice,
so,
yeah.
And I don't know what the cost differences are, but that is doable. I've seen it done there. They did it down at Norotan Yacht Club. We've got the crushed stone is striped, so it is doable.
But I would leave the 20,000 there so that we can achieve parking repairs.
Yeah. I think we're hearing agreement that improvement to the parking situation there needs to be addressed. It's just how do we do it in a way that's we need to be mindful of the expense, but also in a way that's compatible with the aesthetic of the park to the extent possible. I think is
Yes.
what I'm hearing.
Okay. And moving down to Cherry Lawn Tennis Court resurface. And again, that 250 is post-tension. Same company that we got the quote of 165, same company that constructed the Weed Beach tennis courts.
Okay.
And then finally, the Cherry Lawn gazebo roof. Jim still is looking, it has to get back to me on a confirmed number for that, but I did notice that there was a 12,000 in the system that was for a roof at Cherry Lawn years back. So I just used that number at 15 right now as a placeholder.
Okay.
So without that 165, that lowers our bottom line, which certainly will look a little better. I don't know that the town will go for that 250 right now, but that's the proposal here anyway, unless the commission would like to do something different.
Can you
And we
talk a little bit
certainly-
about the courts at Cherry Lawn, how old they are, what's their current condition?
I'll let Jim handle that, but I know they're 2012. And Jim, if you'd like to talk about the condition of the courts at Weed Beach.
Oh, you mean Cherry Lawn?
Cherry Lawn.
Yeah, Susan, I have to go back to see exactly when those courts were constructed. But I mean, every couple of years we're having to do crack repair and painting on those. And I think if we, that 250 is definitely on the high end of anything that we would do with post-tension concrete. It's one of those things you can keep on repairing asphalt tennis courts and putting in $5,000-$10,000 every several years, or you can put in a nice new facility that's gonna, over the long term, it's probably gonna end up costing you a little bit less than what you're doing for all the maintenance. It's gonna be playable a lot more. We also, when we did the courts down at Weed Beach, we get a lot of positive feedback from the high school, because the high school uses them for their JV teams as they do up at Cherry Lawn. So I'm sure with the high school courts being constructed in the post-tension concrete, the Weed Beach courts being doing the same, that we're going to have a lot of support from the high school as well to do it that way.
No, it sounds like it's the new way to do them. You really can't do it without this method. And it, with the way our topography is down there, it might help to be post-tension, because it is kind of in a little bit of a well and probably gets water and other things that might go down that way.
Yeah,
so
it's
prevent that movement, I would guess, and cracking.
Yeah, it's definitely the way that, if you brought in any kind of, court construction company, that's what they're gonna try to get you to do that. Obviously it's more expensive for them, but in the long run, it's gonna be better, I think, for the town. I think it's the standard that most places are looking to build their courts. So that's why we put that in there. I think if we bid that, I think it would be less than that. But I think that's on the high end.
So I'm just trying to figure out the urgency of it as a project. Like, is it something that will become a safety issue? Is something happen besides the maintenance that we're talking about? That, is this a nice to have or critical type of thing? Because it is a big number, right, to be fair. So
No, it is. I mean, it's eventually you keep on patching cracks in asphalt. Those cracks are going to get bigger, and it gets to the point where you can't patch them anymore. You're going to have to dig them out. You're going to have to either decide, are you going to do a whole asphalt court again, or are you going to do a post-tension concrete? Whether courts can be playable for a year or two, absolutely. But eventually they're getting to the point where those cracks, and they have been getting bigger and bigger every year. And so that's what happened. That was happening at Weed Beach as well.
I was going to say, I think that happened. That's why we did it. I think we were kind of pushed there to get there.
Yeah. I mean, the cracks get to the point eventually where you just can't maintain them.
Thank you.
Yep.
So I would say that's about it on that. And as Jim said, I do think that businesses are hungry right now. We probably could reduce that number. And I think if we just reach out to a different company within the next 3 weeks to see if that number can be dropped, that might be helpful.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
People have any more questions or questions on the out years? Yeah, I was just wondering on the for the following year, the 2 new paddle courts at Weed Beach. Are you talking repair? Or are you talking actual addition of more courts?
Addition of two more courts in the cluster of the 5 that we have. And Jim was proposing it for this year, this coming fiscal year budget. I thought that it would be best the following year because Jim's proposal is that he's seeing such a huge increase in paddle right now, but I thought let's see how this year works itself out. What that actual increase is will help us drive the proposal to have additional courts there.
Okay, and see if this is a 1-year anomaly or whether it really catches on, which it may. Once maybe like pickleball, once people start playing, they get hooked and really want to stay at it. But that makes sense. Okay. Any other questions for Pam? Mike?
Yeah. Maybe just kind of back to the question of priorities here. We've got dredging the pond at Tilly and widening and repaving the path, which maybe you could just explain what the state of the pond is and what's kind of precipitating that before I kind of move on with my question.
Well, to be quite honest with you, Mike, that cherry lawn dredging of the pond has been on this list prior to me being hired here. So
it Tilly, I'm sorry, you mean we're talking Tilly, right?
Oh, Tilly.
Yeah, this is like the 22-23 year, 82K.
Right. Okay, yes. Okay, so, well, that also was there prior to me, but I have talked to Jim Flynn about this, and we put the 2 projects together. In past years, these have been 2 separate line items, but this particular company that he got the quote from can do both things. So widen the path and dredge the small pond. And the small silt pond is just been matter of fact, we had quite a few calls actually this summer about, a good opportunity to dredge it now because the water was so low. But in our park crew, Jim thought that he'd be able to handle it in-house, but it turned out that we just didn't have the proper equipment. So it hasn't been dredged, as far as I know, in a very, very long time.
And the issue is it's getting shallower, and I guess we have like vegetation growing up into it?
Yes. Yeah, it just needs to be cleaned out, and they pull out all the gunk and they dry it off in the park, and then they remove it. So I'm not certain that I'm explaining it correctly.
No, I think I understand. I guess without knowing maybe more of the detail, I guess I would just maybe throw the question out there, maybe for the commission. Is this an instance where we might want to then suggest maybe swapping that as an example for the repaving of the tennis courts at Cherry Lawn, as an example, or a resurfacing of the tennis courts. I mean, they're obviously very, very different numbers, but in terms of priorities, it's like, I don't know how to judge that, but it seems like it's worth asking the question there.
I think you're right. And I also think that the dynamic may change a bit if I can get that number down, the 250. So if say that came in at 150 and we still move the 82 over to this fiscal year 22, we might be able to put both in.
I guess the question is, how urgent is the dredging? I mean, is it aesthetic?
Or how urgent is the tennis court?
Right. Right.
You know, are
They're
there
good
fish,
questions.
you know, are there fish in the pond that aren't going to survive, or does it affect the wildlife that swims in the pond, or is it just that it's going to fill in
Yeah. I
to the
mean,
point where we
generally,
have no pond?
do we know how, Jim, how deep is that typical? Like, do we know like what the depth of that is? Let's say if it were fully dredged?
Well, we're talking about the small sediment pond, correct? I believe that's what
You're
we're
not
talking about.
Oh, so I'm sorry. Now, what are we talking about here? We're not talking about the larger.
No, the small sediment pond, and that needs to be cleaned out. It's not we're not putting the numbers in for the large pond.
Got it. And the small sediment pond then is what just, I'm not sure if I know what that is.
I think it'd be best if I got better information for you and clarified at the next meeting.
Okay.
I was at the pond recently, and that pond, what it does is it collects any dirt that does kind of run in before it gets into the bigger pond. And it was pretty filled in. Like you could see a lot of it. I have pictures of it, but you really can't see on my phone. And I don't know if you could see with the glare. That's actually the big pond dried up, and it looked pretty unsightly. I'll share these with you online. I mean, on an email, but it needs a little attention. It's definitely filled in. And what happens is when that pond gets filled in, it just goes into the bigger pond, and then you have to dredge the bigger pond. It's kind of like a prevention thing. And so that's where you kind of you catch all the particles you can there so they don't go into the big pond. And it's filled in so much, I'm sure it's not catching as much as it should. So it's obviously, I think it's hitting the big pond. And what happens when the big pond gets really full? I don't know if you know, but some of the flooding that happened, they told us this years ago. I don't know if Pam, if you were there, the water just overflows right onto the road, West Avenue, and just goes right into under the train tracks and helps it kind of makes the flooding worse under there.
Which we see happening, right?
More and more. So yeah, we should maintain it, I think, if we can.
Yeah, I mean, it's easy to gravitate towards kind of when we're talking about budgets towards the, our athletic kind of amenities, but we've got a lot of stuff going on in the parks, and this hasn't been done in a while. And I appreciate the explanation because I didn't fully understand that. That's kind of how that was
I
set
have
up.
good pictures of it. I could send you.
Yeah,
Okay,
no,
yeah, that would be great.
I'll take a drive by. Thanks.
Well, we could move it over to this fiscal year.
Well, I'm guessing we're going to be limited in terms of what you're going to end up with. So I think the more of an explanation and the more of a kind of rationale for any one of these things that we have, the better it is for you, right, in making a case.
Yes, because we're taking out the 165 as well. So I think actually pushing the 82 over would be a good idea. And with the hope that we're going to bring down that 250 to a more reasonable number.
Well, especially given, Susan's explanation, if it's, if the knock-on effect, the downstream, no pun intended, the downstream effect of not doing this is further flooding out on the roads. It sounds like it's pretty something we should pay attention to.
I agree.
Good, thank you. Any more questions? Okay, so we'll be revisiting this and voting on it in December.
Correct.
Right. Okay. Okay. So can we close out this the budget discussion for tonight? Because I think everybody's probably fading.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Great. Okay. So let's Pam, your director's report. I don't have a lot or really anything on the chairman's report. So.
And I think my report speaks for itself. I just like to point out that I did receive concession back and forth with Rob Williamson about whether we will purchase or he takes it away, the options that he would have. So he was more than willing to discuss, and I'm waiting upon some numbers from him. So unless you have any questions about my report, I would say that's great.
What are we doing about the geese? Do we have any plan?
Yeah, yes, there's going to be a plan. There's either we will do the big dollar amount, or we're actually looking at the possibility of hiring a staff member to run their dogs. So we're looking into a couple of those things. And when I get more detail, I will report on it.
Okay.
Pam, are we making progress getting the 2-hour parking signs posted outside of the Diller property, the Diller Park?
They are posted.
They're posted. Great, thank you. Okay, hopefully that will resolve the issue. And again, you know, early on, it would be great if the police can swing by there and, you know, do some ticketing as necessary. Kathy, I know, not Kathy, Sarah is our sort of spy over there. So maybe keep an eye on it as well.
Yeah, I didn't notice the signs. They must, when did they go in, Pam?
Well, they had them made last, let's see, the Thursday before last. And so I guess I had them made. I gave them the Parks crew to hang them and post them. So it is possible that they have not posted.
They haven't yet.
Okay, so they should be very, very soon, because he's had them for well over a week now. So
okay.
I'll drive by tomorrow.
I'll let you know tomorrow whether they are.
Okay. Okay.
Great news on the Cherry Lawn basketball court.
Yes, indeed.
How's it look? I haven't been over yet.
It looks beautiful. I'll send pictures to all of you tomorrow in the case that you can't get over there. But the fence is in, the hoops are up, the temporary lines will be put down once the weather gets warmer. I think it's supposed to be warmer on Friday.
Yeah. Oh,
So,
and now Patty's holding pictures up for us. You're on mute, Patty.
You're mute. You're mute.
I was just trying to show you a 5-second video when I did a quick walk with my dog towards the end of the day. I pulled up and there were 4 boys that were just shooting hoops there. And it was like my heart stopped. It all came together. So I just want to thank all of you guys. You're going to be rock stars. Everybody in town's going to be thanking you. So well done. It looks great.
Good, good. All right. I'll look forward to getting over to see it this week. It's supposed to be another beautiful weekend. So definitely we'll be out in the parks. Okay. So I really don't have too much tonight. We've touched on a lot of things. I don't think beyond those, I have too much new and different to report. So I think probably we would welcome a motion to adjourn. Susan? Enthusiastically.
Everybody, happy Thanksgiving.
Yeah. Happy Thanksgiving to everybody.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Very different for us all this year, sadly.
I know.
Ready for me to?
Yeah, Jamie, you have to do a roll call.
Lori?
Yes, please.
Kathy?
Yes.
Mary Louise? We'll take it. Amy? Pierre?
Yes.
Sarah?
Yes.
Lucy? That's everybody.
All right, thanks, everybody. I know this was a particularly long meeting tonight, so I appreciate everybody hanging in there, but we covered, I think, a lot of really important ground. So happy Thanksgiving to everybody, and we'll see you in mid-December.
Thank you.
Happy Thanksgiving, everyone.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Be well.
Happy Thanksgiving.